Check. I'm just checking the live stream. Let me see. I'm making sure we're live streaming. Weird. Hi, is anyone else, is Rachel on? Are you able to get in the live stream? Rachel? Maybe she's not here yet.
Sarah, I'm logging in and I can tell you in a minute.
Okay. I also have some opera singing going on, so just a little.
It adds some excitement.
Yeah, it's just harder for me to concentrate. Let me see.
Sarah, I do see that everything is up in YouTube.
Okay, can you hear us?
No, but that might be just my headset. Hang on.
Hold on, let me go to the streaming link. Here we go. Hello? It might be a little lag. Oh, here we go. Okay. Should hear echoes of myself.
Sarah, I do see that
Oh yeah, I hear us.
Okay, can you hear us?
Perfect. Okay, so the streaming link is working.
Okay.
All
Oh my
right.
gosh, I hate the way I sound on YouTube, but reason number one why I never went into radio.
Well, we can do voice lessons. We'll
Yeah,
work on it, Troy.
I'll take notes from the opera singer in the back.
Let me resize this.
So are you guys ready with AV?
We are ready.
Okay, so the streaming link is working.
Oh, someone's got the YouTube going in the background.
Okay, then it's 6:02, so I will call us to order. Sarah, do you want to do the roll?
Yes, 6:02. Bowman,
Here.
Boyd,
Here.
Bugs,
Present.
Cerna Prado,
Here.
Cresswell,
Here.
Hernandez. He's not here. Hillbrands,
Here,
Ma here. Martinsek, here. MacArthur, MacArthur? Okay. Menjivar,
present.
Powers,
Here.
Zen.
Here.
Okay, so if people see Mr. Hernandez or Ms. MacArthur come in, just let me know so I can write the time down. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. You have a second?
A second.
Okay. Let's put Hilbrand second. I'm going to do another roll call for approval of the agenda. Bowman,
Yay.
Boyd,
Yay.
Bugs,
Yes.
Cerna Prado,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hernandez. Not here yet. Hilbrands,
Yay.
Ma, Yay, Martinsek.
Yes.
MacArthur. Not here yet. Menjivar,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
That's 11. Okay, out of 11. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 9th LSC meeting. Do I have a second?
I second. Anaya.
Ms. Boyd seconded. I'm gonna do another roll call, and then we'll be done with these for a minute. Bowman,
Yay.
Boyd,
Yay.
Bugs,
Yes.
Cerno Prado,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hernandez. Not here. Hillbrands,
Yay.
Ma, Yay, Martinsek,
Yay.
MacArthur. Not here yet. Menjivar,
Yay.
Powers,
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay, that's 11. Can anyone text Miss MacArthur?
I'm currently trying to send her the link. She reached out.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I thought I saw her in trying to get to the stream. And so I know she's trying to get in. And maybe Troy said she could look for an email from Troy because he sent the specific Google Meet link. Okay, thank you. And I fixed the stream so we're all up there in a little grid. Okay.
And Troy, could you there's 2 more speakers on the speaker sign up list. Could you send them the Meet link as well? If you open that file, or Sarah, can you do that?
Is that the incur?
Yes.
You got that, Troy?
I'm on it.
Okay, thanks so much. All right.
Okay. Then we can proceed with speaker sign up or with the speakers and Tanya Cabrera. If you could unmute, see her there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
you.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you're taking public comments now?
Yes, the public participation was the first
Okay.
section, sorry.
No, no worries. I was actually just inquiring because we recently admitted about 74 of your students, and one of the issues that we came up was about translation. So I know that students were trying to address making sure they had equitable access to information to share with their parents, right? So they didn't have to be the resources or the translator for their parents, because that's kind of an extra load they don't necessarily need to carry, right? And so one solution is that what we use is, and I'll put it in the chat, is UndocuWiki. It's an automatic, it's less than $100 to get the Square site, and it automatically translates. And a lot of schools do that just to have it universal. It's an HTML format, and our students are willing to help support you. We're thankful that to welcome 74 of your students this fall in any language that they would want. And so we hope that we can help in any way to facilitate that for your students now and for future students transitioning in. Thank you.
Great, and I don't know if everyone caught what institution you're with. You are with UIC, right?
Yes, I'm the Assistant Vice Provost for Student Inclusion at UIC. I work with all students, but in particular our undocumented students on campus. And so this was our stuff is translated, and so they could, those students they may have disabilities as well. And so we try to be inclusive as possible. And they stated there was an issue. They're like, oh yeah, and I was like, oh, I would be more than happy to help. And we have a student org on campus that specifically does this work. And I'm not sure if we have access to the chat, but I'll drop it in the chat, the resource link for students, and we'd be happy to help if you guys need some support. Thanks so much for having me.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have questions or comments for Ms. Cabrera right on the spot? I'll reach out to her and make sure we get the info about the UndocuWiki and your contact too for students for your program. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I just want to, as a secretary, make a note that Latrice joined at 6:08. So I put that in the minutes. If Mr. Hernandez joins, please let me know.
Okay, next is Carol Deely. Carol.
Hello. Okay, thank you. So my name's Carol Deely, and I'm a parent of a junior at Jones. And what I wanted to speak about was the last meeting in February was the first LSC meeting that I had attended at Jones ever. And I attended because I represent a group of parents that are pro-choice for returning to schools. And that was part of the discussion at the last meeting. What I was surprised by at the last meeting was the comments from the administration. And not only surprised, it was very hard for me to listen to those comments from an administration that over the last 3 years, 2.5 years that we've been part of Jones have been remarkable in that things seemed relatively calm, and there was always somebody to go to if I needed something or if my student needed something. And so to hear them speak about how they perceive that they've been treated by the new LSC was very, very difficult for me to hear, because as I mentioned, I'm very interested in having my student return to school in the 4th quarter. And I feel like that what the LSC and all of us that want to participate with the LSC should be is supportive of each other instead of disregarding the work of the individuals that have come before us, and disregarding the experiences of the administration that we have. So I just ask that everybody pause and remember those comments. They're listed on the website. And I suggest that we consider the following as we move forward together in shaping our school going forward. And that is in the spirit of support and collaboration, that we work together with all of our stakeholders, that we take the time to listen and learn without rushing to judgment, that we respect those that have come before us and the work that they've done to bring Jones to what we are as a community right now, knowing that we're not perfect, but we're a blue ribbon school and a highly regarded school, and many students would enjoy having the privilege of being at Jones. That we need to be civil in all actions and words, ensure the broader community of all stakeholders is represented, and finally, that we need to keep the meetings to a manageable time so that more parents will be willing to participate. So I thank everyone on the LSC and on the committees for your commitment to the Jones School community. I thank our administration for everything that you've done and continue to do. And I believe together we can make a difference, but divided we will fail. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. LSC members, any questions or comments for Carol? We can also do a final response at the end if people want to save theirs. So this is not your final comment area, but if you have questions for her specifically, I think it's helpful to ask them now. Okay. Next up is Amy Hand. And there's Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, I'm glad for the opportunity to speak again tonight. I've also only recently gotten involved in the LSC meetings, and do appreciate all the work that's being undertaken to manage and improve the school. I feel like it's important to get more parents involved, and so in hopes of that, I think it's important to mention that the lengths of the meetings that I've attended and listened to on the archives it's really a concern. We are discussing really important subjects, but all the stakeholders want to be informed about. However, meetings lasting 3 hours actually are a very strong disincentive for many people who would otherwise attend. I've spoken to many parents who feel that way. After checking the Jones LSC archives, I could see that last year the meetings lasted more on the order of 1 to 2 hours, with a couple of exceptions, especially as COVID was developing. So I just wanted to mention this and hope there's some way to devise some kind of time into the agenda. One idea, for example, is to allocate a time period per agenda item, say, 5 or 10 minutes to devote to one topic, or 15 to 20 minutes is the plan to devote to another topic, just so that it helps as we're working through a meeting, that there's a goal of, how much time is allocated. Obviously, you can't say you're going to strictly stick to that. It'd be impossible to say, but at least it would give everyone sort of a reminder of how to watch the clock as the meeting progresses. Like I said, I'm just offering this as an idea, given how important it is to make sure that people who, want to be involved can make the time to be involved. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Amy. Anyone have any comments on that for Amy? I think one thing to point out, just to reemphasize to everyone, public participation is at the beginning so that it really is accessible and then we can hear from people. The minutes are very detailed and they are approved at the next meeting, and then they're public, and the meetings are recorded, which is hopefully this, even after the pandemic is more resolved and we can do in-person meetings, we can still do some live streaming and recording, because I think it really helps. And to be honest, the remote meetings have really, I think, improved participation as well. So, okay. Roberto, do you have a question for Amy, or can you hold it till the end?
Oh, I can hold to the end. It was just, okay. I was just going to make a quick comment, but I can hold. Thank you.
Yeah, let's, next up is Deborah Land. Deborah, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Cassie. Good evening. My name is Deborah Land, and I'm the parent of a Jones freshman. I asked for the chance to speak tonight because I have deep concerns about the potential of returning to in-person learning this school year. None of us could have anticipated that we would be learning from home for a year already. I really applaud the way the Jones faculty and staff have organized remote learning. While it's not ideal, I see my daughter is making substantial academic progress this year. It's easy to get her to join her classes because the Google Meets, chat rooms, and Pear Decks our Jones teachers use are dramatically better for her than any asynchronous learning ever could be. CPS has asked parents to commit as to whether we're sending our children back before we have any real idea of what this looks like. And so I have some questions specifically relating to Jones because I'm afraid that the town hall that CPS is hosting tomorrow won't address school-specific issues. So first, regarding the Jones building, how do we address fresh air replenishment with windows that aren't supposed to open? Does our Wi-Fi in the building have sufficient bandwidth to accommodate all the teachers and students who might be in the building to be online at the same time all day? And does that bandwidth allow stable simultaneous learning for those students who will remain at home without interruption to the remote learning? How many students could hypothetically be in the building at one time, and does that meet CDC guidelines? My second area of questioning is regarding the potential for student pods. How is it even possible at Jones to create small student pods that would remain together while students are on campus to limit their exposure? My daughter, as a freshman, has 2 classes that are above her grade level, and there is no other student in the 2,000 Jones students that has my daughter's same schedule. I believe this is a math problem without a solution. Additionally, we would be naive to think that students won't show up to school with COVID-19, perhaps asymptomatically. Teenagers will not be vaccinated before school gets out this summer. Someone will test positive, and then you interrupt the learning of all the students they came in contact with, sending them all back to remote learning for quarantine. Transitions like return to learning at school and return to remote learning are disruptive, and our students lose valuable instruction time. I get it. We're all tired. Students are tired, teachers are tired, and parents are tired too. And it's a pandemic, and none of us has ever had an experience anything like this before. But keep in mind, we only have 3 more months till we can recharge over the summer break. I asked my daughter, what does she want? Because I think students need to have a voice in all of this too. And she says she cannot imagine coming in person to school until the fall when the teenagers will be vaccinated and they can safely learn together. I have to completely agree with her that that's our best possible plan. Our Jones faculty has done a great job setting up remote learning. The kids are in the rhythm, having done this since September, and the downsides of disrupting this stable system are substantial and complicated. I ask you, please, while you consider bringing students on campus, don't make remote learning worse to enable a partial return to in-person learning for only some of the students. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Council members, any comments and questions for Deborah in particular? So just speakers, don't feel like we're ignoring you also, like, you know, we'll have some comments at the end of the speaker session, all the speakers together. And okay, Caitlin Miller, and I think Caitlin and Ms. Park are gonna split the PPL statement.
You skipped Catherine Smith.
Oh crap, sorry, thank you. Because I don't see anyone with that name on here. So Catherine Smith, are you here? Could that be the phone number? Well, we will call Catherine again at the end of this list, I think. And Caitlin and Ms. Park, I think it's fine to go right now if you're happy to go right now. Does that work for you guys? Okay, if you're ready to go, that sounds great. And I don't know if you can fit this into like 6 minutes together. Does that sound like about how much you have anyway? Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Take it away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Caitlin Miller. I'm a member of the PPLC. And I will give the first half of our report for this month. So in our most recent staff survey, the PPLC asked teachers and certified staff questions in 3 distinct categories. We asked about student performance and engagement during remote learning compared to previous years, including student-generated questions about also about staff mental health in the school environment and material and informational needs of Jones teachers as the district prepares for high school reopening. Of the 68 respondents to the survey, 61.8% or 42 teachers said that the students' first semester grades were higher than in previous years, and 32.4% or 22 teachers said that students' first semester grades were comparable to past years. However, this survey question only measures teacher perception of student grades, as a side-by-side analysis of our cumulative grades has not been conducted, nor do these questions address potential root causes such as curriculum and assignment adjustments in remote learning. While grades are seen to be overwhelmingly comparable to or higher than in past years, teachers perceived student learning very differently. 47.1% or 32 teacher respondents said that students understand the material at a level comparable to past years, but 48.5% or 33 teachers said that student understanding is lower than in previous years. Our student representative, Denia Boyd, has brought up concerns about student engagement and feelings of connection in remote learning. Staff opinions vary widely about student engagement. In our survey, we saw an almost even split in the number of respondents who are not satisfied with student engagement in the context of the pandemic and who are satisfied with the level of engagement. We specifically asked about measuring student engagement, including unmuting and using the chat function, both in whole class and breakout room sessions. The detailed data is available in our written report. We also asked staff if they would be in favor of school-wide standards of engagement for students, with around 1/3 of respondents solidly in favor. There was a more definitive agreement in responses to questions about whether there is a need for more school-wide student social events, with 70.6% or 48 of the 68 respondents agreeing with this need. And the PPLC is encouraged to hear about events such as the recent trivia night and would like to see those events continue. And let me just say a personal aside, the English teachers won that trivia night. The second section of the PPLC survey focused on staff mental health. And a common theme was that the most positive feelings are associated with being in smaller, more close-knit settings such as department or course team meetings, and also being in class with our students. Staff also overwhelmingly reported that interactions within their departments and course teams have positively impacted their mental health, and additional specific data is available in our written report.
Can I chime in 1 second? I just want to make sure, I'm sure I'm driving people nuts. I'm trying to find where you are and where my presentation is. I'm on page 9. Do you know where you would have left off so I can sync up with you?
I don't know, because I didn't know I had a presentation alongside.
We'll be starting around slide 16.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I'm on par with everyone.
Yeah, we're not going to go through like every single thing in this PDF, just a quick summary. So the final, Heidi Park, also a member of the PPLC. So the final section of our survey asked about staff needs and questions associated with school reopening. The PPLC has communicated broad categories and key ideas from these responses with the administrative team. We've also shared questions from staff with the PPC, who will soon help form the school safety committee. The PPLC met with staff on Tuesday, February 23rd, and currently the biggest concern is around school reopening, both logistics and communication. The PPLC brought those concerns to our meeting with administration on Tuesday, March 2nd, asking for a communication timeline and updates in several areas. A key area of concern is around technology, including questions about devices for staff and students and the bandwidth capabilities of the facility for simultaneous instruction. Our technology coordinator, Ms. Troche, has twice surveyed the staff for their tech needs and has begun conversations about what simultaneous instruction might look like in terms of technology from a teacher standpoint. As was mentioned at the Health and Safety Committee meeting, the PPLC and administration are partnering to create informational content for families about what reopening will look like at Jones. The PPLC will coordinate with departments to put together information about what specific classes will look like across the school. And the administrative team is putting together the information about school-wide plans and procedures, including entry procedures, lunch, and passing periods. Given that CPS has already sent a survey to families around reopening, the hope is to aggregate and deliver this information to families prior to spring break. As we all wait for specific information from CPS regarding district level decisions such as reopening dates and grade levels, the PPLC will continue to encourage open and thorough communication from the Jones administration to enable us to prepare for reopening. We will continue to ask teachers for their needs and questions throughout this process, and we look forward to working with the administrative team working with the teachers in the discussion on a Jones specific reopening plan. Given the pressing nature of these reopening questions and concerns, the PPLC does look to the administrative team and LSC to clearly lead and communicate guidance to the Jones community to help us best prepare for the new teaching and learning journey we will be beginning together in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin and Heidi. If you could stick around after public participation so that if there's questions when at the actual PPLC slot that Ellen and Kim want you to field, that would be really great. So Amy said she requested an error. So we will move on to Montserrat Vasquez. Are you there, Montserrat? I see you.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, great. It's your turn. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Montserrat, and I support the initiative to translate documents from Jones into Spanish because there are times when the school sends out an email to parents and my mom asks me to translate it for her, but I cannot attend her at the moment. When I am done and I read it to her, there are times where I have read it late, which causes us to miss out on things. I also asked for my mother's input and she agrees. She thinks it would be great because when an email is sent out, she depends on me to understand it. It would be easier for her to receive it translated so that she knows right away and does not have to ask me. In elementary school, my elementary school, we would receive the school documents in 3 languages, Urdu, Spanish, and English. And this would facilitate communication between parents and the school. Because the news would reach many. It would be great if Jones had the same thing so that those parents are being included in the school community more often.
Thank you so much. And thank you for speaking as a student. We really appreciate the students who are willing to take the time and come speak to us. And, you know, you're really stepping up on behalf of students and parents. We actually do have this on the agenda in part to talk about how the LSC has stuff translated and interpreted, but it's really an issue for not just the our own documents. And so, and as the budget information comes out very soon, I think this is something that we need to look at as a budget line and see how we're doing it now, and whether we need to dedicate funding for this if with the sort of piecemeal solution we're doing now isn't working. Anyone have feedback immediately for her? We will, yeah. Okay. So we will be in touch for sure about this. Sorry, I lost my speaker list. And so next is KK Cleland. KK, I see you there.
Hello.
Great.
I can't see everyone, but it looks like we have about 28 people on the call. Is that correct? Okay, so we are down from 75 last time. Okay.
No, we're streaming.
Oh.
So we actually have 30 people watching on the stream right now. Too.
Okay. All right, good. Well, thank you. I am going to read my comments, but I'm hoping everyone can be present and maybe not answer emails and just take a moment because I think I am the oldest person in the school as a parent. And so I would like to ask for your attention, and I really appreciate the opportunity. So I start with Dr. Powers, faculty, staff, student representatives, and members of the Jones LSC, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and a special hello to all the guests who are on the call who have not joined the LSC meetings in the past. My name is KK Cleland. I am an active parent at Jones since the fall of 2012. Our family has been fortunate to have all 3 of our children be a part of this extraordinary experience of attending this school. Our time here at Jones is about to end, however, our youngest is a senior. In addition to the exceptional experience our kids have had in the classroom over the last 9 years, the highlights have included things like being involved in choir, theater, really highly regarded theater productions, basketball, tennis, and the highlight for the last couple of years has been ACEs. If you don't know what that is, you have something to look forward to as a parent. As a parent, I have had the opportunity to be an active member of Friends of Jones for the last 8 years. I started serving out as the Fine Arts Liaison. I served a couple years as a co-chair for the annual fund, and if you haven't contributed, I would encourage every one of you to please be as supportive as possible. I'm currently serving as the Alumni Committee co-chair. However, my most proud contribution to this fine institution is being the unofficial photographer for theater and many basketball. I think I've taken about 15,000 photos on behalf of the kids of this school. I don't share this with anyone to bore you, but to illustrate I am old, that I've been a part of the school for 9 years. And I want to illustrate that it's our lived experience and our family in this community that has given us a chance to know what it means to be a Jones Eagle, to see firsthand with some longevity of what this school's ability is to deliver a meaningful, world-class, inclusive, innovative, and enviable educational experience. Having 2 of our boys already graduate, I can tell you that the dedication and commitment of living to the ideals of the Jones grad values has changed their lives, and not just theirs, but every single classmate at different levels. They've been fortunate to be a part of this community, and I am certain that I am a better parent because I have been at Jones. And I am forever grateful for Dr. Powers and what they have accomplished, and I thank them. My point in coming tonight is that some of you may know this, but I don't know if you do truly understand. And so I would be remiss if I don't give a shout out on behalf of the alumni and the alumni families who know firsthand what a Jones education stands for. This is one of the top schools in the country, let alone the state of Illinois. We have been honored with distinction of being a blue ribbon school multiple times. We've had countless students recognized as National Merit Scholars at different levels, and because I don't have any of those kinds of kids, I know there's all different levels.
You're getting close to 4 minutes, so just letting you know.
Thank you, Chris. They are Trio, McNair, and Ed Scholar, Posse Scholars. This is extraordinary. These opportunities have created a pathway to success for students of color, students of all kinds of abilities. They go on to the highest schools, and you can't overlook that sense of excellence. I've never attended an LSC meeting prior to fall, and the reason I came was because I was concerned about the things I was hearing related to a movement by what was then a potential slate of officers interested in serving and who didn't necessarily want to support the legacy of the LSC, but they had their own implicit intention to disrupt and destabilize the leadership of the school. And since November, I have been disheartened by what I'm seeing and hearing. I will not comment on the meetings themselves. I think other people have made those, but I am going to ask this. And I would like to ask for exception for a few extra minutes, only simply because I would like to.
Can you wrap it up and maybe in like the next 30 seconds? That would be great. Because really, people have 3 minutes, and given the concerns that people have for the length of the meetings, it would be helpful if people asked ahead of time if they didn't think 3 minutes would work.
I would like to ask for an exception, please. I have been.
How much longer do you think you have?
I think if I have 2 minutes, I can wrap it up.
Can you do that in like 45 seconds?
I'll do my very best.
Thanks.
The message I really want to emphasize tonight is that I want to acknowledge the excellence of Dr. Powers, Dr. Plunkett, Mr. Mitchell, our former administrators, Dr. Fay and Ms. Round. They have been trusted, thoughtful, responsible, and empathetic leaders that stay up night working on our children's behalf. Is everything perfect at Jones? No. Is everything always handled 100% correctly? Probably not. But it has been the leadership team that has worked in collaboration with the LSC, with the FOJ, with the community. They've created this space for this school to be as what it is. Our students are taught so much beyond the classroom. I'm here as the old parent to ask that the LSC continue to work to do this work, but to listen, to ask, how can you help? How can we be a part of it? How do we take it even further to build community and trust? I ask that you be thoughtful in your work without blame, without personal agenda, and without dismissing the fine work of this administration and this amazing faculty and staff.
Thank you. Anyone have comments for KK? Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I'm gonna have a few comments just about all of the speakers. Thank you so much for speaking. That's why we put the public comment at the beginning of the meeting so that we can make sure that we hear from all the stakeholders. And we really appreciate you signing up in advance. It just allows the meeting to be run more efficiently. Oh, we have 2 more speakers?
Sorry, just one. Kevin Lee, and then Michelle will speak.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So I guess my only comment is that there were only 4 people on the slate, and I was one of them. And I don't know. I guess I'm just not privy to all the conversations that everyone are having about the slate. But I just think that the people that are concerned with potentially what the slate has done should reach out to those 4 individuals. There's 13 people on the council. And I just wonder how many meetings we're going to have. All the rest of the council members are going to have to sit here and listen to the four of us get criticized. I'm fine. Criticize me. Let's have a phone call. Let's go out for coffee. I'm up for it. But I want to stop putting this out at the public meeting. There was 4 people on the slate. It was myself, Cassie, Mr. Hernandez, and Mr. Menjivar. All of our emails are public. So please reach out to us individually. And thank you.
Okay, Roberto, I think make it pretty brief, and then because we have 1 more speaker. So.
Yes, I can make it brief. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ms. Cleland, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Thank you so much for attending and for your message. And I'm glad to hear that your family had a wonderful experience at Jones and that you've had this great experience. My concern is that from what I've heard, and I've been a part of Jones now for coming up 2 years since 2019, is that hasn't been the experience for a significant portion of our students, in particular our students of color, our Black students, our Latinx students, as you heard. And we've heard Latinx students asking for certain documents to be translated, so that responsibility doesn't fall on them. And so that's what I want, is that we make this even a better experience, right? To build on what your family has enjoyed and contributed to the school culture. So I appreciate your comments, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to bring in voices, to improve that, to make recommendations, to work with this LSC, with the administrative leadership in the school community. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Roberto. Okay, let's finish off our public speaker list with Mr. Lee. And there he is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think I might be one of the voices that Roberto is trying to bring in. So I just want to introduce myself first before everyone here. Hello, my name is Wonjun Kevin Lee. I'm a youth organizer at the HANA Center. And I wanted to thank all the council members here and the Jones Prep community at large for extending the invite for me to be able to join this space here and hear about the current state of Jones Prep regarding the rise of Asian American hate crimes all across the U.S. Just a quick overview of HANA Center for folks who may have not heard of us. We're a community-based organization working to meet the critical needs of Korean, Asian American, and also multi-ethnic immigrant communities and build community power towards systemic change. So not just a service organization, but also an advocacy place as well. We have offices on the north side of Albany Park, Chicago, and also Prospect Heights neighborhood. So it's a little far from where Jones Community is located. But regardless, I wanted to share a little bit about Hana Center's Youth Empowerment and Organizing Program, which works with Chicago Public School students and college-age young people who identify as Asian, Latinx, Black, and multiracial. I also wanted to highlight that at the center of our campaign and movements, we make sure to amplify the voices of youth, which resulted in us participating in the COPS.CPS movement, as well as the TEACH campaign, which stands for Teaching Equitable Asian American Communities History Act, that is now introduced in the Illinois Senate and House. These two campaigns that I've just outlined are just a part of the broader racial justice initiatives that Hana Center is taking on. And I'm here today to observe and witness and connect with the Jones College Prep community to see what are the ways that we can be of resource for the greater community at large. So thanks again for inviting me to space, and I'll look forward to communicating, connecting, and learning a lot from you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Kevin? And I'll also open up the floor to LSC members who have other questions or comments on the public participation.
I just wanted to echo the thanks to the student, Monse, for sharing. Monse, I also don't know if your mom's right now with you, but I can speak in Spanish or English. Pero si necesita ayuda con alguna de las traducciones, me puede mandar correo electrónico. Y voy a poner mi correo electrónico en el chat para que Monse lo pueda escribir y yo puedo comunicarme con usted. También, o si necesita comunicarse con la administración. So just to like echo that, if there are any other students or families that need translation services, just since we're not sure how long it's going to take to actually get the formal service, I'm volunteering myself to help translate and or provide any communication between the administration and Spanish-speaking parents. My email is in the chat, and that is all.
Denaya, do you want to go ahead? I don't know if I saw Troy's hand or yours first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the comment on like the length of meetings. As someone who was on the old LSC when we had like 1 to 2 hour meetings, I want to say like things like the public comment that just happened like weren't there at the old LSC meetings. We definitely didn't get as much done as we've been getting now with like the new LSC. So I understand that the meetings may be long, but I think that the time is a trade-off for like getting not actual work, but getting more work done and being able to hear more people speak and pass more resolutions and talk about issues and get those things solved. So I just want everyone to take that into account when questioning how long the meetings are, because it takes time to do things correctly.
Thanks, Denaya. I think I saw Troy next.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the issue with as far as translation. That's something that we've had a long-standing attempt to try to translate it. Our top, well, the most demand that we have is Spanish and then Chinese. I would argue that Chinese is more of a need since we have no Chinese-speaking people in the main office. There are also a lot of great tools out there that at the time that we started investigating like different translation tools, Google and their AI have produced a ton of great content out there. If you are on Google, Gmail, you can translate it automatically. There's also text to voice. So if you are driving in the car and you want to hear something that's in English to Spanish or Mandarin or whatever language you have, there's some great tools out there. Those are things that we're looking at as well, as far as like putting that out there for our families to use as resources. So if they're interested in something immediate, those are things if they just do a quick search on Google Apps or how to translate your email. These are already built into the system as we're trying to figure out a system to actually translate our documents. So in other words, it's coming.
Thanks, Troy. And Dr. Powers, I think I saw your hand next.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, echoing what Mr. Hilbrand's just said, we are working on plans at least to be able to advance having Spanish translations in the not too distant future. Part of it is obviously getting translation service, but also part of it is timing and planning because very often documents take some time to be translated. We want to make sure everything's done in a timely manner. I think some of the instruments and some of the programming that Troy was alluding to, I think can be very useful and are things that we can communicate out to families so that they are aware of those services. So we are working definitely and very hard on those issues.
Great, thanks. And then, Roberto, do you have a last comment? Oops, that was Roberto, sorry. I'm like, blah.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to come back. Mr. Lee, thank you so much for attending and representing the HANA Center and some of the youth and empowerment programs. If you wouldn't mind staying on, I think we have an item on the agenda that is going to address the anti-Asian racism and xenophobia. And then I just wanted to go back to Ms. Dealey and Ms. Hand. Thank you. I wanted to thank you, both of you, for participating in the LSC public participation. I agree that the LSC, this body, the administrative leadership team need to learn to work together and improve our communications, improve the way we collaborate. And I think one suggestion is if this body would hold our own session with a facilitator, a third-party facilitator, just to work out some of the differences and perspectives of where we're coming from, because all of us, I believe, are focused on the students. And Ms. Hand, I wanted to mention, you mentioned about setting maybe some time limits between the agenda item. I wanted to let you know, Ms. Hand, that when we submit our reports, there's a form that each committee, each individual has to submit, and then we put a time of how much time we need to present. And so we're trying to build that in so we can streamline and present meaningful content to the school community.
To Deborah's comment in the chat, you can actually do like training and retreat type meetings that are not subject to OMA because you're not doing LSC business. So if it's things like, inter-council relations or whatever, those are things that are not actually public meetings, and LSCs and also, school boards can do that kind of thing. So I think that concludes our public participation. So I think there's a couple of people, like the teachers who are part of the PPLC report, and Kevin Lee, who are going to stay on for items. Otherwise, I think speakers can go, can watch the rest of the meeting in the YouTube stream as well. So there's no need to stick around at this point. And certainly we will follow up with many of you afterwards, and do reach out. My email's on the Jones LSC website. But thank you for taking time to speak to us today. Okay, on to the report section, and we have Mr. Mitchell. Great, there he is. Okay, Mr. Mitchell has the Equity Initiative report, and thank you so much, Mr. Mitchell.
Good evening, everyone. I do want to just start off my report. I will be brief because pretty much everything that I needed to state and update is in my report that can be located in the public folders that you guys have provided. I just want to make a point of clarification. So each month I do report out kind of the equity work that we're doing. But in past meetings, you know, I've been guilty of saying it myself, but we tend to loosely use the word equity plan. And I just want to clarify that the work that we're doing is our overall school culture and climate plan. And we are doing some equity work. Our actual equity plan won't be implemented until we have that equity audit in the fall. And then we can make some determinations, and then that will be an actual equity plan. So I did just want to make that kind of point of clarification moving forward, that I will be speaking on our equity work, but not necessarily our equity plan. With that being said, the work that we do is still kind of couched, our culture and climate plan is couched in 4 priorities. And under priority 1, which is our work around anti-racist training, as of February 10th, we held our second training with David Consulting. The focus that particular session was on the history of race, and it was a powerful session for many to review this historical timeline of events that kind of shaped race as we know it today, and it also provided some context for how systemic racism exists. If you need more specific information about those PDs, again, a lot of this information can be found on our Jones Equity tab, and there are definite links to the topics and even the session synopses. So if you want to know a little bit more about what we did, or you want to have access to those resources, those are available there. So that's it for priority 1. The second priority centers around culturally responsive teaching and curriculum. And as of today, there's no school-wide updates with progress towards this goal. But as I mentioned in previous meetings, there are some departments that are engaging in this work through book studies that they are completing. On February 24th, we formed a new equity team, and this is out of the work that we're doing with the equal opportunity schools. And at the time, on that date, we were presented the results from the survey that was issued back in December. We're still in the process of kind of processing all that data. We will be meeting actually tomorrow to figure out the timetable and how we want to present the information that we just collected. So that is forthcoming to the entire Jones community. Currently, the equity team is composed of administrators, teachers, and counselors. But as we build our outreach and really pinpoint the work that needs to be done, we will be folding in student involvement and other community members. So, we will explain more probably at the presentation when it's time for us to present. Our third priority is focused around improving student voice and communications with students. And we currently just followed up with the Student Voice Committee in regards to the incident form that was being developed. They've been making progress with that. And actually, I think I have a meeting scheduled with them this week as well. The next steps are for that form to be taken to CPS Legal to make sure that everything is okay from a legal perspective, and then we will have another discussion around the implementation of that document. Lastly, or additionally, the second session of our peer conferencing program commenced on February 17th. The third session is actually tomorrow. And this past session was on community building. This session tomorrow is going to focus on restorative practices. And just as a quick recap, the training program through Youth Alternatives is meant to develop capacity amongst students with a restorative approach to community building and conflict resolution. So, again, these first 6 sessions or these first 10 sessions for the students is about training our young people in this capacity, and we will be looking at implementation of this programming in the fall. The last priority is focused around teacher retention and teacher hiring as it relates to teachers of color. And we do have a hiring committee that has been formed, and we had our first meeting. And in that meeting, we discussed kind of what we wanted out of that committee. So the conversation centered around hiring practices throughout the school, and the importance of the retention. And so our efforts, we've started to collect some anecdotal data by meeting with some of the teachers of color to get their perspective about what's happening at Jones. And so the current committee is comprised of Ms. Miller, Ms. Evelyn Jimenez, Ms. Trisha Rodriguez, and Ms. Olivia Guerrero, and myself. So that is kind of my report in a nutshell. At this time, I'll entertain any questions from the LSC membership.
Denaya, do you have your hand raised with a question for Mr. Mitchell?
Oh, no, sorry, it was up from the last question.
Big hand. How about Roberto? Do you have a question for Mr. Mitchell? Is that also a fake hand? I wrote the hand fake out tonight. Okay.
You can lower your hands. You can lower them. As a point of clarity.
Great.
There we go.
So I'll give my own comments. The culture and climate plan seems really helpful. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us. I especially like that it is connected to the CIWP, which is really helpful. And, you know, especially like these next couple of months are really busy for budget, for principal evaluation, for CIWP, and especially since this is such a big focus area of the school, figuring out how everything ties together is super important. I have a chart that I'm going to share later in the agenda, which is really just trying to get a handle on where we need resources to support all of this, to sort of frame it that way for the LSC. I'm just going to share it with everyone tonight, but I would love to discuss it with you in depth since you are working on all of this offline.
Sure.
And Roberto, you two have a question? Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, I'm sorry, I might have missed something. I just want, for a point of clarification, you said that, I think you mentioned the first 10 sessions are training students for implementation in the fall 21-22. Is that include youth alternatives, or is that part of the equal opportunity schools, or what program is?
Great question. Sorry for the confusion. The Youth Alternatives Program is something separate from Equal Opportunity Schools work that we're doing. The peer conferencing programming is the 10 sessions that the students are utilizing that will be implemented in the fall. EOS work is a longer term project. We are partnered with them for the next 2 to 3 years, I believe. And so we're just kind of in phase one, and we're figuring out what our next steps are going to be. That's where the equity team was meeting, and we literally just got that information, the data from the surveys, to figure out what we need to share with the community and how we need to share it, because it's a lot of information, and information without context isn't going to be helpful. So we want to be intentional in how we share that information with everyone.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. I think we can move on to the principal report. Dr. Powers, you want to give us your summary?
Yes. See if I can. I don't think it's necessary to put this up on the screen. Just a few major highlights. We are finishing up the assistant principal search, and we'll have an announcement on that very shortly, who is replacing Dr. Fay. Also, there was some additional information with regard to the reopening of schools. Again, we are still waiting for some of the more specific guidelines from CPS in terms of what form. It seems that the plan at this particular point is looking at the fourth quarter, so we basically know the when, if we do move forward, but the exact formatting of that remains to be seen. In the meantime, we are gathering information on our technology needs, as was mentioned in the earlier PPLC report. and trying to determine what our needs are going to be in that particular area, and then summarized some different goals that are part of the reopening, regardless of what actual form it takes. Our assessment calendar has changed as of last night. ISBE, Illinois State Board of Education, has canceled the PSAT for 9th and 10th graders, which had normally been done at this time. So that is no longer on our agenda for April. We will have the SAT for juniors and for seniors who did not take the SAT in the fall, and that will be on the 13th of April. The Illinois science assessment is still on. That will be done through science classes later on in the spring. And we are working on the details of what advanced placement testing will be like. The first phase of that, or the first round of administration, is the first 2 weeks of May. And we are working out all the details of that given our circumstances. Much will depend on whether we are back in school session or whether we are not. The 5 Essentials survey, sometimes called My Voice, My School, has started for teachers and students and will be conducted with the students, are presented to them during class time next week through their English classes. The parent survey will be available a little bit later on. It has not yet been released. Wanted to give you an update on 2 major projects, a major project involving 2 of our instructional areas. CPS has provided funding for the complete remodeling of 2 of our older science labs in the north building. These are chemistry labs that have been typically used for chemistry, and the work will be completed during the summer and will be ready for the beginning of next school year. That will not disrupt anything if we come back to school later in the spring. Finally, a budget update. We're still anticipating receiving our budget for fiscal year 22 sometime between now and spring break, hopefully sooner rather than later. The budget is a student-based budget, meaning we receive funding based on our enrollment. And our enrollment at the time that the budget was going to be set, it's set for our 20th day from last fall, which was 1,966 students. So we will receive that as a starting point. I am anticipating that we will have our total enrollment somewhere more in the 1,970 up to 1,990 range. If we are over our projected enrollment, then we will receive additional funding from CPS, and that will come to us during the spring. In the meantime, we have ample reserves to tide us over until such time as CPS provides additional funding. And that is about it. In case anyone had any questions, I'm available for you at this time.
Madam Chair, I'd like to be recognized.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Oh, Sarah, I didn't see your hand. So, Dr. Powers, thank you so much for the update. I was wondering if ISB provided a rationale as to why they are canceling the PSAT.
The only thing that we received was that those had been canceled. There's probably more detailed information available, but we spent most of our time yesterday preparing to have the PSAT and a good part of our time today preparing not to have it. So hopefully ISBE will be able to come up with some additional explanation, but at the same time, they're dealing with a wide range of school situations. Some schools are fully in operation and have been for a long time. Others are not yet. So there's difficulty in determining just exactly how the test would have been administered. So unfortunately, that for the PSAT for their 9th and 10th graders, the state is not going to be having those this year. However, resources are available, and we'll be sharing more of this out to our families a little bit later on in terms of continuing to prepare, having students continue to prepare for the SAT. And they can begin doing that through the Khan Academy, which is free of charge, and through other sources.
Dr. Powers, thank you so much for that. I would just like to state that it's very, very unfortunate because it's been a disappointment last year and this year, and it's very important for our students, freshmen, sophomores, to have those opportunities to get some at-bats with the SAT. And I know that's not under your control, but if there's ever an opportunity for you to voice that, I would really encourage you to speak that or just make a note of that, because it's just a different experience that our students are having. And if there's any way they can make arrangements, if it's something that we could put off at Jones, that would be great. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think that I could answer that a little bit. Like ISB had actually written to the federal government to ask for a waiver from all testing this year. And then since the Biden administration put out a statement saying that they wouldn't be granting those complete waivers, I think the State Board of Ed is trying to cut back on what they don't have to do. And the PSAT in 9th and 10th grade isn't really a requirement of the federal government. The state of Illinois has chosen to do that. So I think they're just trying to cut back on anything that isn't absolutely required by the feds.
That is correct. And that's why the Illinois science assessment is going forward, because that is one of the things that is mandated through Department of Education.
Anyone else have a question for Dr. Powers?
I do. I just have two brief questions. One is regarding the parent survey. So when that comes out as a council, I recommend that we push our parents to take that survey. You don't actually get to see the results unless you get 30% of your parent population to take the survey. And then if you look on the Jones, about the school, you'll see that it's blank from the parents. And so I just think as a school, it's good to show that we have parent engagement. And I think that's something that we should focus on as an LSC to try to, or as a school, to get parents to engage into that survey. It's all online now. It used to be old school Scantron when you came to report card pickup, but now it's all a link. And so I think that we just have to set a timeline for reminding parents to take it. And then my second question, and I know that in the private email that you had mentioned that this would come out maybe in the next meeting, but if you could just talk, Dr. Powers, a little bit to the social emotional learning plan, or, I think you have some plans in the works and just wanted to put that out there for the council.
No, certainly. As I mentioned before, the social and emotional supports that our students have are very extensive through a number of different sources. Everything from what the counseling department does, through the mentoring program that Ms. Martinsek has been so instrumental in leading for the last number of years, and also for our mentoring program, our Eagle Leaders program. So there are many, many different resources, including our various clinicians that are available to our students. What we're in the process of doing is bringing that all together into a single document, so to speak, trying to tie together all the different steps, I guess you might say, of those things that are available to people. The resources are there, the supports are there, the services are there, but they need to be better presented, more clearly available to people. So that's what we're working on right now.
Great. I think Jose has his hand up, and then Rachel, you can be on stack.
Right. Dr. Powers, could you tell us what the roles and responsibilities are of each one of the assistant principals, and also what line on the budget is being used to cover those positions?
The roles and responsibilities are varied. We do publish a document each year showing what the major roles and responsibilities are for each member of the school administration. We are in a somewhat state of flux right now since we lost one of our administrators, and we'll be replacing that person very shortly here. And we will then sit down at that time and reorder those based on, a lot of it's based on experience, it's based on interest, it's based on things interconnecting with other things. So that's going to be coming up again. But essentially, that's how we determine the various roles and responsibilities of each member of the administrative team. We do urge people, however, because we are a small team of only 4 people, that if they have questions or concerns about anything, if they know specifically who they need to address it to, please go ahead and do so, but copy to the other members of the administrative team. Or if a person does not know who to address it to, addressing it to all 4 members. And that way we can address it that way. In terms of the funding for it, my position, for example, is funded by CPS. Mm-hmm. So each school has already in place the principal a clerk, and a counselor that are paid for outside of the building budget. The other 3 administrators are paid for through our combination of CPS funds coming to us through the 115 line and also from state funds as well. So that's basically how those positions are paid for.
Thank you, Dr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Rachel, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I just kind of wanted to follow up because I know at the last Health and Safety Committee meeting, I felt kind of just, I guess, somewhat unprepared, or just I needed a little bit more information about the SEL information in relation to the CIWP. I definitely don't feel like as educated as I need to be on that. And so, Dr. Powers, I was wondering if, to Sarah's question, if there's like a set of actions or any sort of like dates for completion, even if it's not super accurate or precise at this point, just if maybe that could be shared, if that exists. I know that there's still, the plan is still in development.
Yeah, well, our work is no secret by any means. The SEL team, we convened probably 4 weeks ago to try to start pulling these things together, and we have done so during that time period. The stage we're at right now is to organize it in such a way that it is easily coherent and understandable for everyone. Our goal is to try to have that available to present to the LSC in the April scheduled meeting. So that's our timeline right now. But again, please be clear. I want to make it very clear that the services are there, the supports are there, they're already in place. But what was lacking was an overall comprehensive way in which to present it. And that's what we're working on right now.
Thanks. And I think I see a question in the chat from Elaine. Mr. Mitchell answered that he's the administrator that works most closely with the counseling department. And then she was also wondering, I think following up from Jose's question about the specific roles and responsibilities, if there's a document that you said has that, I think that would be really useful for us, especially right now as we're filling this.
There's really not much point in presenting it right now, simply because a quarter of our administrative team is going to be changing here in the next few days. But we will update that, which we need to do anyway, and present that and make it available to you, hopefully by next meeting.
I mean, I think it seems like there must be work that is carved out that the APs cover, no matter whether, like, who they are. And so maybe you divvy it up across the 3 of them differently. But I think people were wondering what they cover, because we have a testing coordinator, we have Mr. Voigt, who does the accounting stuff, Troy's doing facility stuff. So I think just making that clear to the LSC members would be really helpful.
That's easily enough done, and it's made available to all the teachers and the staff at the beginning of the school year as well.
Great. Jose, is your hand still up? And do you have it? Is that a real hand?
Sorry.
Okay, Roberto's hand is a real hand. Go ahead.
I just have 2 questions for Dr. Powers. To follow up on Councilmember Bugg's question, I wonder if, I don't know if Jones does this already, but is there a way we could simulate the PSAT for the freshmen, for the Jones freshman and sophomore? Just because I think, you know, to provide them that experience, what it would be like. So just as a suggestion or something, and I don't know if Jones does that already, like simulate a PSAT, a no risk, right, PSAT. And then my second question is, in Dr. Powers, in your principal report, and I think this was in the PPLC, like there's some concern about bandwidth with the students potentially returning to Jones. I'm assuming that's internet bandwidth. Do you have an idea what would cause the school's internet bandwidth to not function properly? Is it if we have 50% of the students back, 75%? And you may not have that information, but it'd be important to understand, like, what are we doing to address that if we do get a significant number of students coming back to Jones?
Yeah, in answer to both of your questions, in the case of the bandwidth, I don't know exactly what the capacity is because we've never had to test the capacity all the way out that way. What I am anticipating and what I think we're envisioning here for the return is a combination of essentially a simultaneous instruction. In other words, that students will be in the classroom and receiving direct instruction from their teachers and interacting and so forth, but not necessarily online. In other words, they won't necessarily be doing exactly what the kids they'll be doing what the kids are doing at home, but the kids will be at home on a computer and the other students will be in the classroom. Now, it doesn't mean that they cannot use and will not be using their computers, but they can be as well. But it's not the intent that everyone is on essentially remote learning, even though some kids are in the building and the other kids are at home. So we're, as much as possible, try to make the in-classroom experience the same as it normally would be, while making sure the kids who are remote will continue to be connected. So I'm not anticipating a major issue with bandwidth because of that factor. However, we've got a lot of other technology that is going to be necessary for us to successfully have simultaneous instruction. And that's as was alluded to earlier, we're in the process of trying to figure out just exactly what that is, where it's coming from, how it's going to be implemented, and basically, what is needed and who needs it. With regard to the PSAT, we have not done a practice PSAT in a long time since it became a standard part of the state in Illinois and CPS. However, there are online resources where students can actually take a simulated PSAT or SAT, and because much of that is free of charge, we're going to do everything we can to get that information out to our students and their families.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Sarah?
I'll really quickly address the bandwidth question. So having been involved with an elementary school that's reopened, the CPS did come out and do an assessment because we did need an upgrade so that all the teachers could be teaching simultaneously. They also received wide angle cameras and a few other things so they could project the students on the screen. Obviously, every school is different and will need different assessment. And I just, I think the tech people at Jones, as long as they're communicating with downtown, can really start to say what they need. And Ellen, you have a...
Yep, go ahead, Ellen. Although your report is next.
Sure, yeah. No, I had two questions for Dr. Powers. So one was about the SEL team. So you mentioned the mentor program that I've been running for the past 4 years, I think.
At least, yeah, 5, I think.
Yeah, time is confusing. So I was just wondering, I guess I wasn't aware of that meeting, and I was wondering if it would be possible to make sure that I'm on that list, because I think a lot of the dovetailing pieces require everybody who's running these different pieces to kind of like be in the room at the same time. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then I did want to speak just briefly about reopening from a teacher standpoint, just because I think we are all like mentally very ready for things to be as close to possible as normal. But I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of realities of simultaneous instruction, and then also just given that we're still in the midst of a pandemic that are going to limit that. So I know we're partnering. So I'll reach out to you, Dr. Powers, to like just meet up shortly, just to see from a teacher standpoint what we visualize as like what that looks like. And again, we've spoken a little bit about it, but for example, as a science teacher, I will not be doing like physical labs, for instance. So unfortunately, I think we're not quite at that point where we're quite at the normal in person, but like adjusting to the new simultaneous normal. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thanks, Helen. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Dr. Powers, for fielding all these questions. I think next is, actually Ellen is next. It's Denaya with the student report. I don't know if you want those slides shared the whole time.
No, I'll just post the link in the chat so that people can follow along if they want to, because there are numbers.
I think because we're streaming, it would be nice to have it up for the people that.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks so much.
And for the people on the streaming, it is linked from the agenda. So I think most of the reports are in there, like almost everything is on there on the agenda too. So if that makes it easier to look at from home, those are available. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to start off my report with some data from the Eagle Day survey that went out to students this past week. So first, we surveyed students. You can go to the next slide. Surveyed students on what SGA called inappropriate Eagle Day activities. And these are basically things that go against kind of the guidelines of no extra work, no graded assignments and things like that. And 48.5% of students said that their teachers did implement inappropriate activities like this. And then we asked for various specifics like graded classwork, presenting new content, additional homework, and then even giving test quizzes and other assessments. And then we asked about appropriate Eagle Day activities, which were things we talked about. Sorry, I'm moving a little fast. Next slide. Talked about the social emotional activities and extra lesson reviews to review content. And on both of those, students reported that they were not as great as they could have been. As you can see, 32% of students said that their teachers didn't even plan any social emotional events. And I know that's something that I, as a student rep, and other students and parents have talked about is very important in the virtual setting. And then we see various things that students didn't really have a strong opinion on, like holding group discussions and things like that. Next slide. Just trying to get it out there fast. Additional concerns, we asked students SGA asked students how easy it was to complete their homework by 9 p.m. 28% of students said that they weren't able to do that, and then nearly 80% of students said they were getting less sleep with the current Eagle Day schedule than they were getting with the one before. And then a general summary of some comments that we got. 18.6%. Sorry, that was on that slide too. Thank you. 18.6% of comments said that they wish we had a later start time so that they could sleep in a little bit more. They think that they would be more productive during the day if it started, say, at about 9 or 9:30. Other comments said that they wish that we had longer periods and that maybe we could have the A-Day classes or the B-Day classes made into a half day rather than having all classes on the same day, because that makes it very hectic and hard to meet every class on time. We had only a small amount of comments said that they still are requesting the old Eagle Day schedule, which we know is impossible based on CPS's guidelines. And then only a few students talked about 4-hour ACT labs, which they think is more productive in terms of completing work. And then finally, 33% of the comments said that this schedule is stressful, unproductive, and exhausting. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry. And then, yeah. Okay, we can do this slide. So these are general questions that I got from students as the LSC rep. So the first one was about in-person instruction, if that were to happen. Students, and Dr. Powers already kind of touched on this, but students were worried about the quality of instruction time that students who were staying at home would get versus the students who were in class would get, because they're afraid of being left behind. If there are any guidelines that admin has been working on with teachers about that, Dr. Powers, it'd be great if you could share those. And then the next questions were about senior season. Seniors had questions about the senior events that have been being planned. If those will be at full capacity because of the pandemic, or will all members of the senior class be able to participate in those? And then finally, we've been told in various emails and by SGA that variations of prom and graduation are being planned, and seniors wanted to know the specifics of what those would look like. Thank you.
Thanks, Danaya, and thank you to the SGA and Trinity Lee who worked on that survey. I think it's really helpful to see what the new Eagle Days are looking like from the student perspective. And anyone have questions for Danaya? Dr. Powers, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you. Danaya, thank you very much for sharing the data. It's good to see that. The results are not what we hoped they would be. Clearly, we were getting anecdotal reports back in terms of some of those things with regard to what the teachers were doing. Now we have very concrete data to go with that, and we will be reporting that back out to our faculty and staff to make sure that they understand what the purpose is. Some of this could very well be reflecting the very starting days. We've only had a few Eagle days since we've been under the new schedule, and maybe people are not getting into the stride yet of it, but we will definitely make sure that this is communicated with our teachers. With regard to the senior events, I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with the senior leadership, senior class leadership, and class sponsor to discuss some of these things. We just received in the last few days guidelines from CPS. Like anything else, they're driven by the current circumstances with regard to the pandemic. But at this time, sad to say, it does not appear we're going to be able to have prom as it normally would be held, nor are we going to be able to have our formal traditional graduation ceremony as we've had in the past. The guidelines we have right now are for indoor gatherings of no more than 50 people, which for a class of 475 students or thereabouts is going to make something like prom essentially impossible, unless you have 5 proms or 6 proms, which is, tremendously expensive and not logistically feasible. And with regard to graduation, what we are looking at right now is, for one thing, I don't believe the auditorium theater is even open and would even be available to us, even if we had that variance to do that, but we're not going to. Instead, we're looking at a drive-through graduation ceremony, much as we did last spring, and a possible virtual ceremony to go along with that people can view from home. There are other senior activities which we're looking at with planning. The counseling department, for example, is working with school leadership to develop a cupcake day event at the beginning of May. For those of you who are not familiar with Cupcake Day, it's essentially the 1st of May. It's when students report to the school their commitment to colleges where they're going, and also report any financial aid that they're receiving, their scholarships. Obviously, the 1st of May is on a Saturday this year, but we want to get a greater involvement of everybody in that, not only turning in that information, but we're going to try to have some fun events related to it, virtually at least, and have some incentives that go with that. So that's one of the things we're working on. Finally, as far as other major normal meaning during a normal school year, senior events, the panoramic picture is probably something we're not going to be able to do because it does involve a gathering of, even if it's outdoors, more than 100 people, far more than 100 people. But we have ways in which we can simulate something along those lines, which Mr. Hilbrands has worked on, and we did for last year's graduating class as well. And then the final thing to mention is our honors convocation for seniors, which we had to do virtually last spring. We're going to do it a little bit differently this time. Last spring, we just simply put up pictures of students being honored and what they were awards they were receiving, such as their department awards and so forth. Instead of that, we're going to have that, but we're also going to have a virtual ceremony as well, which people can then view from home and see the students' pictures, see what they're being honored for, and so forth. So we've got a number of things like that we're working on, and I do know that the senior class leadership has some other ideas they want to discuss with us in terms of some fun activities for our seniors. It's very disappointing for our seniors. I know it is.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
you.
Do we have more? Rachel, do you want to go next?
Hi, yeah. I just wanted to say, Janaya, thank you for the report. And I just wanted to ask a quick question about the last slide in your report, and the question from a student asking, will the students who choose to learn from home still be getting the same instruction and quality as those learning in person? I guess that's something that's been on my mind a lot, because it seems to me, regardless of what the reopening plan looks like, there's going to be some students who return and some students who don't. And so I just wanted to just ask, I guess, generally if that's how to think about that question of like quality of like, I mean, I know we're talking about it in various different ways, and Ellen, you kind of brought that up too, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to like amplify that question because it was something I was thinking about as well.
Thanks, Rachel. Maybe we can cover this again if Ellen and Kim have some more to share in the PPLC report, because I think this is a big thing for students and parents wondering how the logistics will work out, especially since we're supposed to tell CPS by March 19th whether your child is going to return. So. Denai, do you have any final comments for us?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was super, like that. I think the EAL Day thing is really helpful to see. Next is the PPLC report. We heard sort of the substance of the report. And Ellen and Kim, if you have specific things to add, this is the floor is yours.
I hate to interrupt, but can I just quickly, there's some comments in the YouTube chat. I just wanted to put them out there really quickly. So one was Ms. Trosh, I put it in the chat about the wireless upgrade. And so that they're going to keep, they have direct access to the IT team if they run into issues. And then one quick question about graduation was, is there any possibility of an outdoor graduation at a football stadium? And I don't know, Dr. Powers, if CPS has said anything about that. I just want to address that before we went to PPLC.
Yeah, outdoor gatherings are limited to 100 people. And that's total people, not just 100 graduates, but 100 total individuals. So
thank you.
It's really not feasible, unfortunately.
Thanks. Ellen and Kim.
I don't think we really have much to add beyond what Heidi and Caitlin did a great job explaining with our report. We tried to just survey the questions that Denai had asked us at the last LSC meeting, which is what the bulk of that report is, and just the fact that we are trying to get an idea from different departments on what this hybrid teaching may look like, because we are figuring it out on the fly as everybody else is like getting information. We are also getting information. So we are going to be asking teachers from various departments to put together like, what would my classroom look like during this time, so that parents would have an idea, and we're going to try to get that out before spring break. But we're all kind of in the same boat, as we don't know what the plan we have no guidance from CPS on what it will look like, how many grade levels or anything like that. So we're trying to figure that out as we go, which has been, the story of the year.
Thanks. Other council members, do you have more questions for Kim and Ellen? Dr. Powers?
I think both of those are old hands.
Are these old hands? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's my big question as a parent, since I'll just ask mine, is the same thing. Like, I know there's classes where it's very much not just like a teacher talking to you over Google Meet and you're doing stuff on paper. A lot of it is very like elaborate usage of lots of different apps. So if the students in school aren't using those and the students at home are, it seems like this is a very complex thing to solve. So I think everyone's eager to see how this could happen. Okay, the next report on the agenda is Friends of Jones. Michelle was going to step in for Jackie, but I also see Jackie here, so you guys can tag team as you need.
Yeah. Jackie, do you want to take it? You want me to? You know what? I'll go ahead. It looks like she's still on mute. So first of all, thank you. I know we're not officially part of the LSC, but we appreciate the platform for us to announce some key things to the group. So our next FOJ meeting is this Thursday at 8 a.m. everyone is welcome. So please feel free to dial in. The information is on the Friends of Jones website. And then as far as upcoming events, our online auction is live. You should have seen and received that information via the various email chains. It started yesterday and goes to the 19th. And the virtual event is on the 19th as well. This year, we're really excited that it is a free event for everyone. You do need to register though, so grab your friends and make sure that they register, because that's how you get the code to get to the end of the meeting. So it's free, join, and we hope to see you there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you can put the links to that in the YouTube stream too. I hope someone is doing that. It's hard to manage both, but that would be a great place to plunk it in there. And okay, I think that is it for Friends of Jones this month. We have our committee reports, and then I think after our committee reports, we'll do a short break before old and new business. So first on the list is budget. And so go ahead, Sarah.
I don't know if Troy's there. I could try to, oh, there's two Troys. Ah, sorry. Can you share I emailed you a slide. Okay, I will also, I've been manning the YouTube chat also, so I've been putting, I can find the slide too. It's in my, hold on. How do I present? Are you presenting or am I going to do it, Troy?
If you want to present, you can. I'm
Okay.
trying to find the.
I'm kind of bad at Google Meets, I'm sorry. Huh. Oh, you guys, interesting. Wow. Okay, let me make it bigger. Oh man, I feel like not very smart.
If you want to, Sarah, you can click present and
Thank
that'll
you. Thank
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Perfect.
I knew I'd get it. Okay, so just really quickly, we are going to have our meetings the first Monday of the month at 3:15 p.m. The committee members are myself, Mr. Voigt, Mr. Hilbrands, Dr. Powers, and Miss Deely. She's a parent. And for, for our monthly reports, the LSC members will see the cash disbursement journal, the chart of accounts, and then the check request for amounts over $2,500, and then any budget transfers. And then there was a link in the document I shared that we're going to approve graduation expenses, which includes the announcements and diploma covers for $7,317.36. Dr. Powers and Mr. Voigt will be reviewing the student fees and do any assess and then do any adjustments and present them to the LSC for a target approval in May. And then the annual budget is coming, we hope. It would be amazing if we got it at the end of this month. That would give Mr. Voigt and Dr. Powers some time to work the magic that happens with budgets. And I just wanted to quickly touch on the loss of rental income this year. Troy put together for me, the gross amount that we've received, and this year it's zero, and it's ranged anywhere from 240 to 340,000 in the last 4 years. And so I think that it's just something to keep in mind. That this year, due to the budget money was moved around a little bit to pay for one AP operations manager, an orchestra half position, and a science half position. They actually funded the science half position with other money, so that money will roll over for positions, but this is already sent to CPS, so we don't actually have access to that money. And then a little bit for overtime and subs. So that was a total of $392,000. So just to be aware, where did that come from? Some of it was taken from the building lease income line item, some from this accrual of summer school tuition that just has accrued over years. A fundraiser that Friends of Jones did, I believe 3 to 4 years ago, called Bridge the Gap. That line item had $230,000 And that was specifically for something like this, a rainy day where we needed a little bit more money. And then there was a line item called Friends of Jones donations. So just to give you that background. So if you have any questions, myself, Dr. Powers, would be happy to answer.
Thanks, Sarah.
I guess the main takeaway is that I sent a link to the 2021 budget. And if you can just look through that spreadsheet, kind of as a preparation for what you'll receive in April, just to orient yourself with the information that you'll be given.
And if I could add on that, I appreciate the presentation there. This has been an extraordinary year, actually even starting later last year, because we lost income from rentals starting in March when CPS shut down all rentals, and that is still in place. If we are able to return to a time where we can resume rentals, even on a partial basis, and then continue on through the summer and into next school year, then I think we'll be in very good shape with regard to these resources. Our budgeted funds did fall a little bit short. We were held harmless. So in other words, we didn't lose any money in our budget for this year, the current budget that we're operating from. But at the same time, we didn't gain any additional. So having that reserve fund, starting with the Bridge the Gap fund, which Friends of Jones engineered for us several years ago, we were able to work our way through that particular budget crisis without having to touch into that particular fundraiser. But that's why it was there, was to help in case these kind of circumstances. I don't think anyone anticipated a pandemic or the loss of income from rental in this way. But that is something that once restored, I think we'll be in very good shape. Also, we will have, if our enrollment goes back up to where it should be, which is around 1,990 students, just under 2,000, then we should be in very good shape for the start of the school year. But we do have ample reserves to cover some shortfalls, but not indefinitely, of course.
I think Roberto, you have a question?
I do. And either Sarah, Councilmember Hilbrands, or Dr. Powers can respond. So it looked like the Bridge the Gap fund that was raised by the Friends of Jones was like about $300,000. No?
I believe it was 230,000 was the total.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 200.
That's okay. When you add it together, yeah, it was 230, and then there was 50, almost 60,000 from a different line item, which I can explain that number too.
Okay. I guess my concern is because of the pandemic and you had to use those reserves, it sounds like you had to use some of that reserve or most of that reserve. Are you concerned for the upcoming school year or any time for the 21-22 school year? And should we start, I guess, raising to replenish that?
My reaction to that, or response to that, Mr. Menjivar, is no, I'm not terribly concerned. We have been able to, over the years, continue to build a reserve that, again, serves this particular purpose, not just the Bridge the Gap, which was a tremendous effort on the part of Friends of Jones and a great deal of support from our school family. But at the same time, also, accumulating other sources. For example, the funds that were available from summer school tuitions. We pay for our teachers through that, but again, we ended up having a little left over each year for a number of years. So we were able to make use of that. So we're in very good shape that way. With regard to our internal accounts, that's anything that isn't a budgeted item from CPS or from the state. We still have a good, strong reserve, and we'll be able to weather just about anything that comes our way. I will say, however, we are less leveraged in terms of supporting positions within the school through internal accounts, much less so than several other schools. There have been a number of schools who have had to essentially spend out their reserves and not raise enough money, and then as a result, laying off and closing positions. We, in 13 years, have not had to do that because we've been able to manage what we had and to do it effectively. But we're facing one of these challenges which we couldn't anticipate, and that was loss of income. We will get the same per pupil allocation from CPS as we have. I think it goes up slightly this year. But the big trick for us is to carefully manage the income that we do have, or the reserves that we do have, and also if we do receive additional money based on our additional enrollment for the fall. So that's kind of where we are right now. I'm not terribly worried. I would, of course, obviously never wish to dip into the reserves. We'd like to use those reserves for things like replacing technology and addressing other things such as buying new technology related to our upcoming return to school. But we can't do that until we're sure we've got other bases covered. I don't want to be in the position of telling people you don't have a job next year because of this.
Thank you so much.
Sir.
Anyone else have a question here on the budget stuff? I was wondering, I don't think we covered it at the budget committee, but I'm wondering if fees are dropping off this year in terms of collection, given the economic circumstances of the pandemic. Like, has it been harder to collect fees? Did our free and reduced lunch percentage shift at all? Or are there just more people in circumstances that can't pay them, and has that impacted that? And are those activity fees a part of the reserve that we have in the internal accounts?
Most of what comes in through the activity fees goes directly to the departments. In other words, the money that we raise through the general activity fees, part of that goes to department budgets, part of it pays for other specific things that are listed that are available to all of our students. For example, the yearbooks. The students don't pay, they don't order a yearbook separately. They're available for all of our students. That's just one example. We are not assessing all of the fees this year simply because we've held off not knowing whether we would return to in-person instruction. So something as simple as the 9th grade physical education uniform, t-shirt and shorts, we simply haven't assessed that to anybody because we're not in person. However, once we do return, the students are going to have to pay for that either this year or they carry that over to next year. In other words, they use it for 2 years. They just make the payment one time. So there are a number of things like that. But no, I think overall, I think our income from the fees has been relatively steady. But again, some of it is just kind of held in abeyance that we're not even putting it up there for people to pay. With regard to the free and reduced, i.e. the fee waivers, we are presently right about 30% of our students are eligible for fee waivers. That has come down from a high of over 50%, going back maybe 10 or 12 years ago. But right now it's hovering right around 30%. So that's 30% of the students who do not have to pay the activity fees and who then also have fee waivers on things such as their summer school classes and things of that sort.
So do we waive it for free and reduced lunch, or do we only waive it for free lunch?
It depends on what the activities are and specifically what the waiver is for. We've actually divided it between free and reduced, but we're reassessing that, especially with regard to some specific things. For example, the dual credit program with Loyola University, we pay for the students who qualify for fee waivers. We pay their tuition for them, whereas students who don't qualify pay their tuition themselves.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, like, especially thinking now about the budget and this large shortfall, having details about what like the 3 APs do. And as we talk about this stuff, I think it would be really helpful because, you know, these are important decisions, and they, you know, when it is not something that the 115 line can cover, I think that information is really helpful. So it seems like, you know, 3 APs is something that's pretty standard maybe for a 2,000 person high school. But, you know, I think seeing the full picture of all the positions is really important, especially now that it's budget season.
Well, we certainly can provide all that information and do provide that information. At the same time, in the real world, i.e. outside of CPS, a high school of 2,000 students would not have three assistant principals, but more likely have 4. And also, one of the large factors involved in the need for members of the school administration and the school leadership in terms of those numbers are our reach evaluations. Each of us right now, nothing this year, of course, because that's all been put on hold, but each of us oversees multiple departments with total observations and evaluations, sometimes bouncing around 100 per year, which is very time consuming. It's very important work, but to have fewer people trying to accomplish that is essentially the work would suffer. So we're making sure that we're justifying the having of 3 assistant principals. We didn't move to a 3rd assistant principal until we passed about the 1,500 mark about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think there's a bill actually to reduce some of the frequency of like the proficient and exceeding teachers. So
I'm all in favor of it.
Okay, then I think we can move on to health and safety, and that would be Rachel.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. So I'm just trying to make it quick, but the Health and Safety Committee did get out to a lot the past month. But I'll just run through the most. I don't want to give preference to any one of the things that I was going to bring up, but we had a meeting at the end of February, and prior to that meeting, the LSC was contacted by a teacher at Jones, Mr. Baster, who reached out to us to propose that we draft a statement or support a statement condemning the recent uptick in attacks against Asians and Asian Americans across the country, especially during the year of 2020 in the wake of the spread of the pandemic. And so I reached out to Mr. Baster and had a conversation with him. And at the meeting that we held the end of February, we talked about what a statement might look like, and Mr. Baster actually provided some other statements that other school districts across the country have adopted to just raise awareness. And I mean, we'll speak more about that later when I talk about that. But that was a discussion we had at the meeting that was really enlightening for me. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Baster and to Logan Baster, his son, and the parents and students who helped draft that statement that's up for review by this council. Yeah, I really appreciate Mr. Baster and Logan for coming forward with that. And so the next thing, just to table that for the time being, the next thing that we talked about was the CIWP and social emotional learning goals, and we talked about that already, so I don't really want to talk too much, but we had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Plunkett at that meeting. Thank you, Dr. Plunkett, for attending the meeting, and I'm still figuring out what the CIWP is and just looking through that, so I kind of want to leave that for now. But we also discussed at the health and safety meeting the possibility of a Jones specific survey on reopening that would come from the LSC potentially. And I know there's mixed feelings on this. I did get a chance to speak with a member of the Lane Tech LSC. Their LSC did send a survey out not only to parents, but also to students recently. And the results of those surveys are really enlightening. And so this parent kind of helped me understand from a selective enrollment high school's perspective what a reopening survey from the LSC might look like. Because I know there's a lot of questions about reopening. There's a lot of passions around reopening. And so being able to hear from several different people, I think is helpful. And some teachers and students who attended the meeting suggested maybe organizing some sort of meeting or information session. If there's not a survey, maybe the LSC Health and Safety Committee could organize like a Zoom conversation about what reopening would look like at Jones for parents and students to attend, and maybe the Health and Safety Committee could take part in organizing like this, because I think that, you know, at the very least, there's a lot of questions that maybe teachers would be able to ask themselves too, and then answer. Just, you know, especially in light of the need for parents to respond by March 19th. I don't know if that would be possible by March 19th, but that's just an idea that was raised, and I personally think it's a good idea. So there's that. The next thing that we talked about is having a conversation among the Jones school community about school resource officers. This is something that I think is kind of a table discussion at the present time because we're not in the school building right now, but just the idea of having, this was something that Daniel Andrade, who's a student on the Health and Safety Committee, his reason for getting involved in LSC work was to participate in those conversations about SROs, because that has been a contentious topic in the past, and also just the need for more information and more parents involved in that conversation, I think, is crucial. And I think that other members of the committee, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that's a shared sentiment. And so having some sort of conversation that's specific to Jones, allowing for there to be a dialogue about that program, we talked about that. And then finally, Danaya shared the SGA survey about New Eagle Days, the results of that survey. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but I just kind of want to amplify the flexible schedules campaign that's been ongoing across the district. And I'm personally trying to think through with the committee how we can amplify that campaign. Right now, we have sent in our campaign to send letters to the district. We sent 450 letters. And so I'm just inspired looking at the results of the SGA survey. How can we amplify that message? And you know, at the district level too, because it seems like a lot of students, you know, have thoughts about Eagle Days, and the reinstallment of Eagle Days, I know, has been a concern. So that's what I've got.
Thanks, Rachel. Comments and questions for Rachel, Sarah, and then Dr. Powers.
Okay, yeah, so just quickly about this concept of a survey. So I think, or like a parent forum or like an open house kind of thing, right? So having been through a school that had been through the reopening process, can't really have a open Zoom with parents until there's a lot of details, right? So we don't have any details right now. And so I think even though they're asking us to make a decision by March 19th, we really don't have, I mean, if Dr. Powers did a Q&A, he wouldn't have much information other than we're gonna have air filters, you know? And that doesn't mean we can't keep working. I don't know if there's, and this might be part of the PPLC project, which is like a walkthrough committee, you know, to address, you know, concerns about different rooms. And it looks like you're doing that with the rooms and what the room with simultaneous teaching will look like. And, you know, and the concern about not being able to open windows and just, you know, getting a little bit of information about that. Once you have the information of what it will look like, I think then there's a few things you can do. At previous school, there was like actually a giant Google Meet. And people could kind of talk to the AP and it was on for 2 hours, and it was a way to make people feel like they've been heard. And then another one, when we actually had the reopening plan, it was done like this, like a stream. It was like the APs and the principal, and you could submit your questions. They went through, this is what it will look like. And then you could submit questions, and it was, you could scan the QR code and people would type in the questions. So there was no like live chat, but it was a way then on the fly, the APs could aggregate the questions and then and answer the most pressing ones. And then the questions that they didn't have time to answer within the time frame, they did a Q&A document. So I think that there's a lot of things you can do once you have information. And I just don't know what we could do before March 19th. Even though I'm also dying for details, don't get me wrong.
I mean, as a non-parent, I just kind of want to say from the perspective like of someone who doesn't like have a personal stake in this, I just don't know how families are expected to make a decision. It's just like it's just really frustrating to expect parents to decide on something that's to some people very important for a variety of reasons on both sides of the issue. So I'm just like, what can this the school community have, even though a lot of us don't have answers? That's kind of on my mind right now.
Dr. Powers, you want to go ahead?
Yes, just following up on that. That is our intention, is to have a program of some sort where parents and students can log in and see presentations in terms of what's going to be done, how it's going to be organized, and so forth. CPS has done a very good job of communicating with parents with regard to the overall need for returning to the need and safety, I should say, of returning to some degree of in-person education. The next step is to determine, roughly what percentage of students we're going to be looking at, and then, of course, in terms of returning. And then, of course, we need to know what the details are, what the model is that we're going to be following, and what individual school variances can be within that. In other words, how we tailor it to our own school's needs. And that would be everything from how classrooms are set up, how students have lunch, what they do in physical education, any one of a number of things like that. So it's a tremendously important step to go with regard to that. I'd like to also add with regard to the SRO, it's a broader issue, of course, more than the school resource officers. The CPS Safety and Security Department has rolled out a process called the Whole School Safety Committee, a whole school planning process. And we are developing we will put together a team at the school level, including various representatives of different stakeholders within the school. This is coming up in the next week to 2 weeks. The goal of that committee will be to develop a whole school security plan, which will take into consideration the role of school resource officers, and then present a finished plan based on the resources, based on the various data that we collect and so forth. Present that plan to the LSC in June for the LSC's consideration. So that is a process that is now up and starting, and we'll be coming together with that in the coming weeks.
I just had a quick question for Dr. Powers regarding that last statement, which is, can we get an LSC member on that team?
We already have one. Rachel has already agreed to. So.
Great, awesome, thank you so much. I will lower my hand.
And Roberta, do you have something to add to the SRO timeline?
I do, thank you. So I've been attending a variety of CPS-sponsored engagement regarding the whole school safety plan that Dr. Powers just mentioned. And I'm sorry, I've lost my camera. It's not functioning well. From my understanding, Dr. Powers, is that the LSC's CPS is going to ask the LSC, as you mentioned, correct this security plan with kind of a focus on alternatives to SROs, and then the LSC will begin to vote on that in May. That's the communications that I have received. Is starting in May, this information should be presented to the local school council and for us to vote on whether to retain the SRO and to ensure that we have an alternative to the SRO program.
Yeah, Mr. Menjivar, that is not my understanding at all. This isn't exclusively an issue of the SRO program. It's a matter of school safety and security, and the SRO program is certainly a part of that discussion, but that's not necessarily the primary purpose of this process. Also, the only date time I've been given in the meetings that I have attended has been presenting it in June to the LSC. If it's able to be done earlier than that, then that's fine. But again, I'm going from what we were told at the most recent meeting that I attended with Jadine Chow, who's our Director of Safety and Security.
And just one more thing on that. Did Chief Chow suggest that there will be actual additional dollars for schools in a way that is different than last summer if you voted to remove your SROs?
That is my understanding, that other funds might be available, not just automatically, but based on what the plan asks for, or what the plan feels like is needed, or what the committee develops as their plan. In other words, if the plan says we really need this and we don't need 2 school resource officers, then funds could be possibly allocated to support whatever that plan might be, whatever that other resource might be. And that is different from the past.
Yeah, I think any information we can get on that as soon as possible would be really helpful, just because like if we are trying to figure out budget and that has to do with positions, like it is unfortunate that CPS is not trying to roll that out any faster, because if schools are voting on their budgets in May and then being told what extra budget they'll have for positions in June, it seems pretty.
I think the reason for that is it's taken a long time to get to this point. A lot of community-based organizations have been involved in helping to develop this process, so it's being done very deliberately and without a rush, I guess you might say. And we are used to being able to add things to a budget or add resources to a budget after the budget itself has been approved. There's always a level of flexibility. So if additional funds come as a result of a plan like this, then those will be made available and we move forward in terms of our planning from there.
Great. I think we will now take like a 5-minute break. So I will recess for 5 minutes. We'll see you at 8:13 and do old and new business then. So see you in a few.
Okay.
Hey.
Hi, do I have to do roll call again?
I think so, because we
Yeah.
definitely have a quorum in terms of little meet icons, but I don't know if we have quorums in terms of
Of voices? Yeah. Give me a second. That was the best 5 minutes of my life. Okay. Find where I am in the minutes. Okay, recess. Okay. Do you want to call back to order?
Yes, so I will call us back to order. Sarah will do the roll to make sure we still have our quorum.
Okay, so 8:13. I'm going to do roll call. Bowman.
Here.
Boyd. Okay. Bugs.
Present.
Serna Prado.
Here.
Cresswell.
Here, and I think Boyd is now here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Boyd?
sorry.
Okay,
I was
you.
late unmuting.
Hernandez.
Here.
Hillbrands.
Here.
Ma here. Martinsek.
Here.
MacArthur.
Here.
Menjivar.
Present.
Powers. He might still be coming back. Zen.
Here.
Okay. I think Dr. Powers will unmute his screen. I don't know how you say that. When he's come back.
So our old business item is interpretation of meetings and translation of documents. I think the feedback I've heard about the Google closed captions is that it is better than not having it, but not the same as having a live interpreter. So it may be something that we could think about at least having interpretation on some of these key meetings that we're required to have as an LSC. Like we should have like 2 budget meetings. We should have 2 meetings over the year on CIWP. And so I think maybe those would be something if we can explore getting an interpreter for those. I've done a lot of Zoom meetings recently where you call in to get the interpretation. And so I think that's something that we should really look into. For our documents, the agenda has now been regularly translated and our once a month email. And then Rachel, thank you for getting the health and safety materials translated. I think that's really helpful. I'm not sure what other capacity we have as an LSC to do this. So I think going forward, we need to figure that out. And yeah, but to whatever extent we can do some automatic stuff, that is helpful as well. And trying to expand beyond just Spanish into Mandarin, I think is also good.
Are you looking for a budget? Are you putting money? I mean, so far there's, yeah.
I think this is something that, yeah, I would like to see the budget committee figure out maybe like what translation in general of, say, the emails from the school, how those could be done regularly so we can address like the comments of the student and also Vice Provost Cabrera in participation. That would be nice to know, especially as we figure out the budget for the coming year and make sure that we actually have a line for it. I don't know if we can take care of some of that sooner. That would be great. But other points on that? Roberto? Oops, Rachel and sorry, did not have the hand order. I'll go with Roberto and then Rachel and then Dr. Powers.
Yeah, so I think at the based on Ms. Vasquez's comment, and thank you to her. And there have been other students who have asked for some of the school-wide communications to be translated. And it sounds like Dr. Powers and Mr. Hillbrands are working on that. And I think at the last LSC meeting, I mentioned that perhaps we need to open a budget line, but I think CPS uses the term buckets to fund that initiative. So if we can open, if the budget committee can really explore that so we can be more inclusive to our Latinx and our Asian American, and Pacific Islander students.
Violet, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. I think it goes beyond inclusivity, just like Montse stated earlier, and it really brings to light the like extra job that students take on, and specifically Latino students that have to translate for their parents. If we're already thinking about how rigorous and how challenging a school like Jones is, to then pile on top of that the need to translate for your parent can be very burdensome. And also, I want us to really think about the other things that come with that, right? Like if you can't do it and you say no to your parent, the shame that you might carry from that, or like just wanting to provide for your own family and you're 14, 15, 16 years old. So to me, this is like just a cry. And this isn't, I want to also be very specific, this isn't specifically a Jones issue. The more I am involving myself with other selective enrollment high schools across the city, this is a larger, broader issue. So I think Jones can really step up and be a key player here. And if we can figure it out quickly, other schools will then be forced to figure it out too. So I think that we have a very unfortunate, I mean, it's been 10 years since I graduated from my own high school and they still don't have translation services. So we keep saying that it's coming, but it's coming a little too late already. So like I needed to be here yesterday. So we talk about the adultification of Black and Brown youth, and that's happening at a much faster rate at institutions where BIPOC youth are the minority still. So just like putting the pressure on, and this isn't to blame anybody, and that's why I'm saying that it's happening across the city. And I also truly believe that Jones can take a stance of leadership here and implement things quickly so that other schools will follow.
Rachel?
I just wanted to ask, I don't have any experience with, in terms of like the budget. If this is like, you hire someone and you pay like hourly for translation services, or if the translation of document, I mean, I probably should know this, the answer to this question, but if that works differently, if we would, I'm trying to like, to think practically here. And I wonder if anyone has like experience with that sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm not sure if anyone, probably Jose would know, like for schools that do this very standardly, and what their budget lines look like for that. And if no one has an answer on the spot, I'll have Dr. Powers go. Is your hand raised, Dr. Powers?
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely something that can be part of the budget process, but it would have to be done essentially as an estimate at this point. We would have to ascertain what kinds of services we need, what is available, the costs, and so forth, what can be done in-house, what has to be done from an outside vendor. But whatever it is, if we're working with an outside vendor, it has to be a CPS, through the Office of Procurement, has to be a CPS approved vendor. So there are all those factors involved there. And I think we can move forward with that, even if it is not a separate budget line very specifically. When we get to the budget stage next month, hopefully next month, we can at least have an estimate of what that would cost. And if it comes in over, we reallocate. If it comes in under, we reallocate. Main thing is we do the research, we find out what's available and who we can work with and what service can be provided, and of course the cost.
I think this is on the equity committee agenda, which the meeting is on Thursday. So I don't know if they're going to have the capacity to take this on in partnership with like someone on the administration leadership team, or if there's someone that you could designate, Dr. Powers, for them to work with to make sure that this is figured out in time for the budget. I think that would be helpful. And I do think that schools have this as a bucket, like when they're Mitchell said. And so it really seems that it's something that we may need to do with that, especially just because it hasn't been done yet. So I think putting it as a bucket is important.
Putting it on the budget itself is the easy part. The hard part is what are the services and who provides them.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the LSC Equity Committee meeting because we have the Spanish Honor Society induction at the same time. So I'll be participating in that on Thursday evening. I'll discuss with the team who might be able to attend, and we can discuss this further.
Great.
Mr. Mitchell has indicated he will be present, so that's good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Mitchell. Ellen, was that a real hand for a second? Okay, and Rachel, is that a real hand? And Violet, is that a real hand? Okay. So I think we can move on then to new business, the approving items over $2,500. And Rachel, or sorry, Sarah, do you want to do that?
Sure. So there's 2 items. One is for diploma covers and one is for graduation announcements. And Mr. Voigt put together an attachment or a table so you could see what was spent on graduation last year. And so just to give you an idea that there'll be more coming down the pipeline. And some of this is taken from activity fee line item and some from the class of 2021's line item. And if there are any questions, then I'll make a motion. But if anyone has any questions, please do so now. No? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the following check requisition. Did I miss it, Roberto? Okay, following check requisitions, $3,168.64 for graduation diploma covers and $4,148.72 for graduation announcements to be payable to Herf Jones LLC. You second. Thank you, Mr. Menjivar. I'll do a roll call. Bowman?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yay.
Bugs?
Yes.
Serna Prado?
Yes.
Cresswell?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Hillbrands?
Yay.
Ma? Yay. Martinsek?
Yes.
MacArthur?
Yes.
Menjivar?
Yay.
Powers?
Yes.
Zen?
Yes.
Okay, that was 13 on the 13. The check requests were approved, and Cassie will sign those over so he can pay those invoices. Thank you. Right now, there are no budget transfers. And Dr. Powers, I'm not sure if you have any fundraisers.
Not at this time, thank you. But
Okay.
thank you for keeping it on the agenda. It's easier to do it that way.
Okay. All right.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. We will move on to 7D, which is an LSC statement condemning all anti-Asian attacks. There's a draft there linked in English, also in Mandarin and Spanish. Rachel, I'm assuming that you'll take the lead on this item. And did we need anyone else in the meet here to chat about this that we're missing? Okay, and we still have Mr. Lee here, who I think could give some additional info.
Yes, I wanted to just present this statement and also say thank you, Mr. Lee, for being here. And also say a big thank you to Dr. Plunkett for reaching out to 2 faculty members to get the statement that I'm presenting to you all translated into Mandarin. That yeah, that's just a huge help. And just wanted to say, please drop a link to the statement in the chat.
I got it, Rachel.
You got it. Okay. So yeah, I talked about this a little bit already, so I won't spend too much time on it. But Brian Baster, who's an English teacher at Jones, reached out to the LSC, asking us to consider approving a statement condemning the recent uptick in hate crimes and harassment against Asians and Asian Americans. And so the statement that he and Logan Baster, his son, and other Jones parents and students wrote is meant to be a kind of like a hand reaching out, a proactive statement as opposed to a reactive one, that is saying, you know, we see and acknowledge the harms that these communities, I should say, have felt and continue to hold. And these things don't need to be felt or held in silence. And it's a matter of inclusivity, not exclusivity, to have these conversations. No one's being left out by acknowledging that certain communities have experienced certain specific harms. I think that's important and reflected in the statement. But this is a statement that's specific to the Jones school community, and the grad values are mentioned, kind of thinking about Jones students' goals for their time at the school in relation to how we talk about these issues. And so you can read the statement. I hope you already have. And it's been translated into Spanish and into Mandarin. But if the council has any comments or questions about the statement, or revisions to it, proposed revisions to it, I would love to talk about those. But that's basically, I feel like kind of like a filter. And so Mr. Lee is here from the HANA Center. And Roberto actually connected us with the HANA Center and the youth organizers there. And so just thinking about how we can be proactive and working with organizations such as the HANA Center that are already involved in, I don't know, I don't want to say the work, but different types of work. That seems to me to be really crucial. I've also been in contact with Asian Americans Advancing Justice. It's an organization here in Chicago, and Cassie has as well, to consider maybe some bystander intervention trainings. And I've reached out to the Asian American Club at Jones, as well as student organizers such as Trinity Lee, about talking about how we might go about planning something like that for the Jones school community, to be on the more proactive side and not, waiting for things and then reacting to them. So that's kind of went a little bit over, but that's the statement.
I just had, my question was going to be about the student organization. So I'd love this. I like the letter, and looking forward to seeing what we can do, even as a council, to support the student associations, and also just to ask the teachers on the LSC, how could this be integrated into the student conversation? Maybe it already has been.
I think with the anti-racist training that we've been doing with Davis Squared, that's like the building blocks of like learning our own biases to then implement in the classroom. So we have been doing Eagle Day lessons, like that Eagle Day period, but they have been more focused on mental health, or should be more focused on mental health, until we get more teachers comfortable with how to facilitate that conversation in a safe way, in a non-triggering way, and with the tools behind us to have productive things. And that takes time. So I would say that that's kind of where we're still like in those building blocks of there, trying to learn how to do this in a healthy way so that we don't bring up things that just cause more harm to children.
Thank you.
On the bystander trainings, AAAJ is doing a lot of these right now, and there's a big demand for them, but they can work with your individual school to hold one specifically for your school. They're about 70 minutes, and I think they're once they have enough capacity anyway, in terms of scheduling, they're not super hard to get scheduled. So I think that would be a nice thing to offer both, to parents, students, teachers, staff. And I think they are covering the cost of that. I'm sure as a nonprofit, they would accept donations to help that, but I think they'll do them for your community, just on your request. So I think if there's enough interest with that, I think it'd be a nice thing to do as an action step along with this resolution. So.
I also forgot to ask this, but Mr. Lee, just because we do have you here, I was wondering if you could, I know you already went explained a little bit of what the work that you do, but if you could just kind of explain a little bit more, just so we have an idea. I think it's just like a privilege to have you with us right now.
Yeah, without taking too much time, I'll try to go over. I was an intern at Advancing Justice, so I know that their program is more targeted towards like actually creating action step for right now, because it's literally bystander intervention training. I think on HANA Center's end, we're kind of looking this as a broader racial justice conversation. So some of the things that we've been working on was starting a listening session we started off with Korean American first generation immigrants to hear about what their thoughts are on, Black Lives Matter movement or any racial justice tensions. So we're kind of making our way through the first generations to 1.5 generations and second generations, just hearing what our communities are talking about and what their needs are. So one thing is, I can't really offer a program or a listening session to Jones because I don't know what the capacity here is and what the needs are. But in the future, we can also look at like how if we need to hold a parent listening session or a joint school administration listening session, that could be one way. Another thing was, again, this is a little bit farther removed than immediate impact, acute impact on the matter itself, but the Teach Act, which tries to implement Illinois public high schools to include an Asian American history curriculum, is one way that students can actually empower themselves to advocate that our community's history has been forgotten in the curriculum, so that we need to include it. So that those are concrete steps that we can offer at this point, but also it feels a little removed than the bystander intervention program that you were mentioning. And again, we as a resource to Jones Community Prep community, that we could also link different coalitions and movements that are happening in on the West Coast and across the states. So feel free to reach out to me or to Roberto, who has my contact, so that this healing process is just a start at the community here. I can't address anything else.
Mr. Lee, I just would like to say thank you so much for your patience, your grace, and just sharing your knowledge. I really do appreciate it, and I thank Rachel for also starting this conversation. And I hope that we can take the next step in partnering with organizations like the HANA Center to really address these racial inequities and structural racism, which is the root cause of this turmoil. So thank you so much, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, thank you again for inviting me to this space. Lastly, I just want to plug in the HANA Center youth programming, so that if youth doesn't feel like they have enough spaces to voice their thoughts and opinions on movements like this, that most of our programming involved having the racial justice lens at the forefront. So if any youth wants to join those programming, I could also share the links and all that. They will have a platform to amplify their voice and actually take this into an action step that they could be a part of a bigger movement as well. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. I am happy to entertain a motion on this now.
I motion to approve.
I'll second. Any objections? No? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Bowman?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yay.
Bugs?
Yes.
Serna Prado?
Yes.
Cresswell?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Hilbrands?
Yay.
Ma? Yay, sorry. Martin Sek? Yay. MacArthur?
Yay.
Menjivar?
Yay.
Powers?
Yay.
And Zen?
Yay.
Okay, that was 13 out of 13 approving the resolution. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Great,
Statement.
thank you so much. And next is the principal evaluation planning. This is something where the deadline is May 1st. And so we need to basically start talking now about what sort of evidence gathering we want to do. I have the link here in the chat, and do you want to show the slides, Troy? That would be helpful for this. So if you haven't done the module yet for principal evaluation, this is really an important one to cover. So you're filled in on this. Here's the overview. The LSC reference guide has a really detailed section on this. And let's see here. So half the evaluation is based on the LSC's evaluation, and then half is really based on quantitative data from CPS, really what is in the school quality rating policy. This past year, there wasn't data from that, so that did not happen. You can also include additional indicators, but you have to add those by November 1st of the previous year. So we don't have any of those this year. And next slide. So this is just kind of straight from the principal evaluation module. The professional practice part is broken down into 5 categories. And then under each of those categories, there are key behaviors. So in total, there's 28 key behaviors. And so it's a pretty, in terms of the output of the evaluation process, it's pretty straightforward. You have these set 28 areas where you assign a score as an LSC. And so to decide what those scores are as a council, you collect evidence, and there's a whole raft of things that you can use as your evidence. And so here again, I encourage you to look at the reference guide. And that goes for you watching from home too, because I think it's just, this is a really key part of what LSCs do. And this, the information in the LSC reference guide is pretty helpful here. So one thing that is important for us to figure out ASAP is if we're going to collect any data via surveys or feedback kind of forms, that's kind of what we need to get into process now in order to have a timeline that ends by May 1st. So we have some time now to collect our evidence, including doing surveys. Then we'll have a closed session where we determine the scores. That includes everyone except for the principal. The student rep will participate, but their vote does not count towards quorum, and they don't actually vote on the score in the end. You determine that score in the closed session, and then you come out and hold a vote on it in open. And then you can have another 30 days essentially for the principal to review the score. You can do a feedback session and optionally revise it. So kind of the key thing for us here is the next slide, which is the proposed timeline. So we kind of have a start date here at March 9th. Sorry, I already zipped through that slide. So we're one slide ahead. And our target date is May 1st, when you'll need to have entered your scores into the principal evaluation tool. So thinking about all this, I had some, possible initial dates on this stuff, but it would be good to get your feedback on these parts. And then also get an idea of what kind of surveying has been done in the past at Jones and is available for us to do this year. So really kind of working back from May 1st, it's possible that your closed session takes a while. There's a lot of evidence to go through, and then you have to assign a score in each of 28 categories. So I think for that scheduling that special meeting for a closed session, it makes sense to leave some time there between that and the May 1st in case we need a second session. So that I think is kind of the key thing that we want to think about. The April LSC date is the 13th. So probably fitting it in between the 13th and the 1st. Spring break goes until I think the 5th, or around about the 5th. So, you know, in terms of doing surveys, there's a little stretch in there where you're probably not going to be collecting a lot of survey results. So yeah, I don't know if people have particular preferences there. I mean, I think it might be safer to do the special meeting on the 20th, and we can look now if people have conflicts with that date. That would be helpful to know. Sarah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think the 20th, it's a Tuesday, so you might, if you have something, you know, say it right now. It is a closed session. I've been in principal evaluations. They usually take 4 hours. Not to scare, you know, it could be less. It depends how it depends how much you have to discuss. But I think in addition, I know there's lots of hands. So one is the date. For sure, we need to decide the date for the first closed session. And I think and then what surveys. So in the past, the last principal evaluation, they sent a survey to the parents and to the students, and the PPLC did theirs to the teacher. And it was basically taking, if you look into the guide, the different, the 5, sorry, my
essentials.
Thank you. Taking questions that are applicable to those stakeholders right from that, and that was it. And then a part after each capability, open-ended. So it's just something that we do need to decide, because we need to have all of that data by April 20th.
Yeah, and not just have the data, you want to be able to look at it a bit before you go into the closed session. So some time to review in between there. Jose?
Yes, I would prefer to at least tentatively schedule 2 closed sessions to do the evaluation, as opposed to just one, or having a long meeting. I would prefer to have 2.
And Roberto?
I'm trying to understand what Jones previous LSCs have done in the past. I didn't. Ms. Ma mentioned about maybe there was a parent survey last year. Maybe I misunderstood that, but I guess I don't remember getting a parent survey, and maybe I just missed it. So my question is, what has Jones done in the past? The second thing is, my understanding is if we do a parent survey, we actually have to get legal to approve that survey. So if we're going to do a survey, we need to draft it immediately, present it to legal, and get their approval.
Yeah, since it was a parent survey and a student survey, and I believe they had no problems getting it approved because they just took the actual language from the principal evaluation. They didn't put any other questions.
Yeah, so I think it would be good to continue those questions, just because, you know, we have some data points from previous years, and it would be helpful to get those again. Other schools also use some more open-ended questions, and they also survey community partners, which I don't know if that, you know, that's not going to give you tons of data points, but I think it's a nice way to expand a little bit who you are getting feedback from. And so there are sample surveys like that in this slideshow. And so those, I'm assuming, you know, they have been used elsewhere, and the questions are pretty general. So really, I think they shouldn't be too burdensome to review, to get legal to review fairly rapidly. But I think it would be good if we can do a vote on the plan tonight. That would be helpful. And to Jose's point, I think we could schedule 2 closed session times that people can set into place, and then have that second one so that if we need it, people have that time reserved. Especially because we haven't done this before as a group. Most of us have not done a principal evaluation, I think. So I think that would be helpful, or a fair number of us have not. And hands up still are Jose and Dr. Powers.
Just real quick, if we're gonna do a survey from the parents, we need to do a survey for each one of the other groups, teachers and staff, and also parents and students.
Yeah, I reached out to Denaya about this, and there has been a student survey done previously, and yeah, I also think that the PPLCs, especially because they, you guys do a lot of surveys, you have it all set up. So really, I think really the school code is pretty underspecified. Like CPS is very much like you must get all your surveys reviewed, but really the close read of it is that it's not entirely clear. I think it's safest to send stuff and get it reviewed, but I don't think you actually technically have to survey absolutely each constituent group, and you don't really use the surveys to actually determine the number. You use the surveys as feedback so that LSC members can determine the numbers. Okay, Dr. Powers?
Yes, just to clarify, in the past we have had parent, faculty and staff, and student surveys. And I also agree with the idea of maybe continuing on with the same survey questions and formats just for the sake of longitudinal data. But I do have a question regarding community partners, which is proposed there. What type of community partners are we talking about?
So I think that's things like, it may be that some CPS schools have more of these than others, right? So if you're a community school, then you have a healthcare center and that kind of thing. So really for us, it would be say alternatives, or whatever sort of outside nonprofit kind of groups that work with Jones students on a regular basis. If we only have a few, then you can always just send them a request to say, hey, we're doing this, and we'd love feedback. So it kind of, the alternatives is the one that comes to mind right now because we're doing that. Yeah, so feedback from you on who to ask would be great.
Okay, that would be good. Thank you.
Another timeline concern is that if we want to assemble some documents and have time to look at them, we want to give Dr. Powers time to get them together. So that is also important. I kind of think that, yeah, if no one has Tuesday issues, I think we should, set a tentative Tuesday the 20th and Tuesday the 27th for our closed sessions. And then maybe it's realistic to ask to try to get all of our evidence and our survey results together by April 13th, which is the next LSC meeting. So we'll have a little time to review and also time built in if we need an extra session.
I think you could even make the surveys close on the 16th, and then that would still give everyone the weekend to review, depending on when you get them out. I'm just saying, to me, it's the important things to walk away from with today are the 2 dates for the closed meeting, and then the tentative dates for the surveys, but with some flexibility if you need to get some approvals.
Oops, yeah, I think that sounds good. So I think I think the motion essentially is we'll try to enact this plan. I would be happy to entertain that motion if people are happy with that idea of the 20th, and then as a backup date, the 27th for the closed sessions.
Is that Elaine?
Oh, yeah, let's see. Sorry, I don't have the chat
Elaine?
open.
Yes, I have a scheduled conflict on the 20th. I have a few standing meetings on Tuesdays, other than our Tuesday.
How? Yeah, is there a better night of the week in that week, like a Monday or Wednesday?
Let me check, okay?
And Troy, you
Can I just, sorry, I had a hand up for a while. I can wait.
Where's it? Oh, yeah, Kim, go ahead. Get your hand.
A couple of things. One, it takes a long time to aggregate data. So if we're going to survey people, it needs to be due the 13th. It's going to take days to aggregate this data and then perhaps us to have to review it, especially if we have open-ended questions. If we have 2,000 students, 100 faculty members, and they all have parents, we are looking at tons of data to sort through. So just to put that out there as a stats teacher, it takes a lot of work to aggregate that data. The other thing is I just want to push back, not that the community partners is a bad idea. I just want to put it out there that we are already being aggregated with all this data. And if we don't think that it may or may not be worthwhile, if we're not going to be able to give it the data sets that we already have due diligence on top of another data set that we haven't done in the past, since it is our first time, I don't know how much fidelity we can give all of this data and like not be overwhelmed by it. So I just kind of want to push back there. And then I'm fine with the 2 dates. That was it. That was my comments of the evening.
Thanks. Troy, do you want to go next?
Really, it's actually just echoing just what Kim said. I'm reviewing our MailChimp history. Last year, by this time, we had already sent out 2 surveys. One is a follow-up, and then one for those that did not click on the survey. And I would echo what she said. It does, just based on my experience briefly with working on this with the LSC, it does seem like it takes a long time to process that data.
So if we get these out sooner, we could do like April 6th, and that gives people more time to look between the 6th and the 20th. And on the community partners, and maybe more appropriate to do something like, here's a Google form where the question is just like, we're working on this, give us this general feedback. And I think really everyone needs to be thinking not just in terms of quantitative data, the array of evidence that you should be looking at as an LSC member is really qualitative things as well. And so that is something to keep in mind. So, we can get some idea of the numbers, but we also don't, unless we're doing like a really, official sampling, we don't know what sample we're getting back with surveys anyway. So yeah, the qualitative is what time it takes them to look through, especially. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Great. So I think we'll try to put this survey date up and also even the documents to have them ready too.
So do you just want a motion for the 2 closed dates, but we're still determining what those are?
Yeah, Elaine, did you look at your schedule?
She said April 22nd.
Okay.
Which
is
a Thursday.
Yeah. So are there objections to the 22nd?
We currently have a health and safety committee meeting.
You
Kim
guys
cannot do April 22nd.
Okay. Well, 22nd. I don't, like how is the 21st?
Madam Chair, I'm unavailable typically on Wednesdays. I take college classes on Wednesdays. So if we're going to have it on Wednesdays, it has to be after 6:30.
What about that Monday?
Yeah, so we also have the 19th as an option. And I think we can also do something after 6:30 if need be too. But is the 19th generally desirable?
Good.
Great. Okay, so let's do the 19th for that first date. Let me make sure I mark that it's a Monday, crucially. And how is the following Monday as our possibly needed second session? Which is the 26th.
April. I think someone in March. I was like, a spring break. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone good about the April 26th as our second possible date. Okay.
Yes.
I see no objections there. So I'll entertain a motion to pass this proposal with this timeline. Anyone want to motion that?
I can motion it.
Was that Kim?
Yeah, we got to really say the motion though. What is the motion?
I motion to have the meetings on the 19th and the 26th, if needed. Is that what I'm supposed to do? It's my first time motioning.
Yeah, your motion to have a closed principal evaluation meeting.
The 19th and the 26th.
I have second.
And does that cover then like the general plan for surveying everyone in a similar manner to last year, with the PPLC working out the details on the teachers, students working out the details on the students, and a parent and community partner to be worked out with CPS Legal. So I just added that to that motion. Is that legal?
So we do it. Depends how much time we want to take to redo these. Let's just do, we could do, I'm going to make amendment to the motion to add.
So we do one
this,
vote.
yeah. Amend the motion, sorry, I like to write this out ahead of time. To add, the PLC will survey the teachers, Student Government Association will survey the students, and the LSC will work with CPS Legal to get a parent and a potential community partner survey conducted by April 6th. Do I have a second? Okay. Woo. All right, roll call. Any objections? No? Okay, roll call. Bowman?
Yay.
Boyd?
Yay.
Bugs?
Yes.
Serena Prado?
Yes.
Cresswell?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Hilbrands?
Yay.
Ma? Yay. Martin Sek?
Yes.
MacArthur?
Yes.
Menjivar?
Yay.
Powers?
Abstain.
Or sorry, yeah, sorry. Zen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's 12 out of 13.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Please email me, call me, whatever, anytime to ask about this, because it is a big undertaking. And so our next item was on last month. Christy Yamaoka is here to tell us about the Positive Coaching Alliance, which we've shared a couple slides from it. And so hopefully you guys have gotten a chance to look at this. This is something brought to us by Roberto. So Roberto and Christy, you can cover this.
Yes, this is Roberto. So I just want to introduce Christy Yamaoka to the LSC. And one of the things that I want to mention about the Positive Coaching Alliance, as a volunteer softball coach and boys baseball coach, I have gone through the PCA training, and it's incredibly impactful. And they really teach students not just to be competitive, but friendly and fierce. And so I invited Christy to join us to talk about their newest initiatives that CPS, a variety of CPS schools, are incorporating into their curriculum and culture. So Christy, the floor is yours.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Roberto. Cassie, I'm not sure if you got my email and if I have screen sharing capabilities. If I do, I'm happy to present. Otherwise, I don't need it. I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as possible.
Yeah, let me see. Like, I shared like the 2 documents that you sent with us, and they're on the agenda. So hopefully, is that what you wanted us to see, or were there some additional slides?
I have some slides, but I don't need them. I guess I'll just share with the group, and the documents are what I'll be referencing. And like I said, I'm going to keep this as short as possible, but certainly I'm available for questions after the case or once we kind of determine, who some of the key players are. So just as kind of a brief overview to give everybody kind of a 10,000-foot overview of what PCA is, who we are, what we're all about. I'll start there, and then like Roberto said, I'll jump into kind of our Sports Can Battle Racism initiative and how we've been working with schools, not just within the Chicago area, but kind of around the country on this initiative. And so, again, just kind of the brief overview. As a whole, PCA, we are a national nonprofit, started out of Stanford University over 23 years ago with really the whole goal and mission of changing the culture of youth sports and making sure that sports are being used as a platform for positive youth development. And this is really in contrast to kind of the culture of this win at all costs mentality. And so, kind of like Roberto said, this is not to sacrifice excellence or competitiveness. And I would say at PCA, we're certainly some of the most competitive people out there, but it is in kind of the contrast of the entertainment sports culture that can trickle down. And so at PCA, we talk all about development, and I think this is oftentimes in direct alignment with the overall school initiatives of growth and development of students. And so we kind of recognize that student athletes are a subset of leaders within the school culture, and that certainly as it pertains to coaches and school leadership within the student body, that to not be intentional about what that experience is it's a missed opportunity. And so, again, I'm not going to go into kind of all the curriculum that we provide in terms of our partnerships for schools and character and leadership development, because that's kind of its own branch. But I do just want everybody to have an understanding that in terms of when culture as we define it, we identify 4 stakeholders that we work with. And so we work with leadership and administration, so folks like yourself, and then obviously coaches, but then we also do parent education and then student athlete as well. And so what that does is just kind of get everybody on the same page about what the goals of participation are, and then clear on what their goals are and what their role in that goal is. And then, of course, supported with resources and tools to do their role to the best of their abilities. So all that said, when we talk about positive coaching, there's kind of 2 goals that we strive for. So again, yes, we strive to win and we strive for excellence and performance on the field. And so that's supported by kind of the positive psychology and research that we have behind kind of the top coaching philosophies. And then more importantly, we focus on the life lessons piece of all those transferable life skills that we know that kids can learn through sport. And so just to give you a bit of background about myself, my background is actually in social work, and I've worked in foster care. And so this work is kind of a culmination of my passions and really kind of seeing firsthand, the platform and the opportunity that sports provide to, not just develop kids on the field, but really develop them and prepare them for life after the field. And we know based on research that these are also predictors of success in the classroom, as well as, different social issues in terms of teen pregnancy and graduation rates and grades and all that sort of thing, which of course are predictors of success in life after academics as well. So all that said, when we partner with schools, we really do kind of customize to fit the needs of the school. And so that obviously leads us to kind of the reason for the call today. And so we do have our Sports Can Battle Racism initiative. And so when we partner with schools, we basically form our partnerships based on what workshops we host with each partner. Ideally, we'll hit each of the groups, so leadership, coaches, parents, and athletes. But I would say as it pertains to this initiative, our 2 workshops are specifically for coaches in the role that they play in using sports as a vehicle to battle racism. But then we also have our athlete workshop for student athletes in the role that they play within, again, the school culture, and how we can really be using sports as an opportunity to create inclusive environments. And at PCA, we make culture very easy to define, where we define culture as the way we do things here. And so when it comes to sports and talking about how we use sports to battle racism, we really take a look at the fact is, everybody feel a part of that we. And so as it pertains to Jones College Prep, when we're talking about sports teams or the classroom and we define that culture, if we really step back, does everybody feel a part of that we? And that's what we really kind of dive into in our workshops. And I think really kind of creating that space for open and honest conversations. And so for the workshop itself, we define kind of 3 main goals. And so that first one is all about curiosity and honesty. And then, using the opportunity, it's a workshop in the true sense of the word, where it's engaging. We're doing the breakout rooms, we're having, conversation through the chat and things like that. But really getting feedback from the coaches or from the athletes about what the culture is there and what their experiences are. And then, exercises to kind of help broaden our perspectives and again, have those open and honest conversations. And then the second initiative of the workshop is really to really talk about the education piece and making sure that we're all kind of working from the same set of facts and taking a look at historically how sports have been used to battle racism and really kind of drive that conversation around inclusivity. And so really looking at, again, the historical context, and I think sports can be that unifier where it just crosses so many lines, so many social lines, that we can use that as a place to start these conversations in a positive way, and really make sure that we're creating a narrative, again, at the school where everybody feels a part of that we, and that we're creating those climates where we can have some of those vulnerable conversations. And then finally, the third initiative as part of these workshops is just the commitment piece, and really kind of committing amongst your peers as well. And we're not necessarily putting people on the spot, but we're really going through exercises that have people look at, what do I have the capacity to commit to, and what is going to be kind of my role in furthering inclusive environments. And again, using sports as simply a vehicle. We use it as a vehicle to teach a lot of life lessons, and certainly battling racism is one of them. There was also just a study released by Laureus USA, and it showed how sports are actually the proven and preferred method of teaching social emotional learning skills, particularly as it pertains to young men of color. And so I think that's in direct correlation with creating an athletic culture within the school that supports SEL learning, and specifically as that pertains to the conversation around social justice and the experience of students of color within the environment there. So I will pause there and see what kind of questions kind of come up. And like I said, we partner all over the US, so I'm happy to kind of share what we've done with other schools as well. But I know that's kind of a mouthful, so I'll pause there. I just have to say hi, neighbors, because I live right on Printers Row. I walk by Jones College Prep on a daily basis. So really happy to be here with you all tonight.
I will send those slides around to my browser is not loading them right. So Uh, and Christy also provided a helpful list of students or schools that are using this in CPS. I know like Lane is on that list. And so we can share that with LSC members as well. And do people have questions right now?
I do, Kathy. So Dr. Powers, I think last year, I think the athletics department does utilize some aspect of the Positive Coaching Alliance, and, if I'm not mistaken. Is there something, is there already an agreement in place with PCA, and can we just add on this new initiative by PCA for combating racism, sports combating racism?
I'm not aware one way or the other. Positive Coaching Alliance provides a lot of free information, a lot of things through their website and so forth. And I'm sure that our coaches have made use of some of that information currently and in the past. But beyond that, we're not tied into any specific programs related to PCA.
Yep. And the only thing that I'll add is that in the past, we have partnered specifically with the water polo program, where they have used that training to train their coaches and their athletes. And so I did speak with the head coach, and he said he'd be more than happy to speak with anybody about their experience. But that was funded specifically through one of the coaches. I don't believe that came through the athletic department. So. And I'll say around the country, I've also seen partnerships funded through the mental health department, through their DEI departments, as well as the athletic department. So, as well as the SEL department. So that can kind of vary as well.
And Christy, I think you mentioned that CPS, the district, has now somehow partnered with PCA. Right? They've endorsed this or something. Can you speak to that?
Yep, absolutely. So we actually now partner with 8 out of 10 of the largest districts across the country. So I know you were talking about the legal team and all that. I've been through all the red tape with a few different districts around the country. But we do partner with CPS on a district-wide base where Jones coaches would definitely have access to PCA training. And so we have that available through the district. I would say as it pertains to this conversation, individual school partnerships like we have with Lane Tech or like we have with Latin, they're really wanting to invest further into specific areas in their culture. So, I think that with Jones, it would obviously be with our Sports Combat Racism initiative. And so your coaches do have access to our training through the district. But again, as it pertains to school culture, I think that's where our individual partnerships, that customization really comes in, because we can hone in on those specific topics, whether that's mental health, whether that's social justice, wherever we can best support you all. So.
Thank you so much, Christy.
I had one more question that maybe Mr. Mitchell or Dr. Powers could answer in terms of who's doing the Davis Squared training right now. Are the coaches getting that Davis Squared anti-racism training? And
if the coaches are members of the staff, they are getting the Davis training. We are not providing it to any additional coaches, but just current Jones staff members. So, and a majority of our sports coaches are Jones, not all, but a majority. So to answer your question.
And the only other thing I'll share is that, with schools, again, we kind of customize, but the way that we implement can vary, whether you're mandating that coaches go through this training. A lot do, but, some mandate it, some make it an option for a professional development. But I would recommend mandating it. And there's various ways that we can also make sure that, if coaches aren't able to attend that day, that we can help, provide makeup opportunities for them. But I just want to kind of reiterate that we can vary how that's mandated. But if it's in line with some of the objectives of the school, we've seen it be most successful when that's also in correlation with, the same messaging that the kids are getting in the student athlete portion of it. That's going to be consistent with the coach training, as well as if you decide to implement parent or leadership training as well.
Is it possible, Dr. Powers, if perhaps, I think the athletic director is Mr. Grizzetto, if you could put Mr. Grizzetto in contact with Christy and they can explore what would work and what wouldn't work?
I can discuss that with him. I think for any kind of program that we might explore, we need to do a needs assessment to begin with and determine not only what our needs are as a school, but also what our resources are that are available to us already. So those are all questions that we can certainly need to get more information on. And that's something I can discuss with our AD, Coach Grissetto.
Yeah, and I could see this could be something that would be after the training with Davis Squared is completed, is this something you would see at the same time, or is that also doing the needs assessment? I guess I'm wondering, is the Davis Squared training addressing some of these issues, or is this PCA a completely separate entity, or they really are tied together?
I think we need to give the Davis Squared and the alternatives programming we're doing for Student Voice, the Equal Opportunity Schools programming, all the initiatives that we have started and are underway. I think we need to give them an opportunity to get that underway and accomplished before we start looking at other programs. Unless something can be incorporated, some of the same ideas or concepts can be incorporated. We have a lot already on our plates right now in terms of both professional development and outreach to students and so forth. So at this particular time, again, certainly we'll discuss this, but we have to determine whether there is truly a need, and do we have the means to do it, and is it a practical addition to what we're already doing in terms of our equity initiatives.
Yeah, I think that definitely speaks to the idea that we need some overarching planning, especially with resources. So that actually will come up later on this agenda. I think, like, to the extent that we can get an idea of the rough cost and for a certain number of people for sessions, that would be very helpful. Yeah, especially because there is we're doing anti-racism training with the teachers, and I think Alternatives offers a variety of things as well. That's in terms of training, and I think having this stuff sort of really tied together does make sense. But having this information soon, I think, is a good idea, because we do need to talk about budget, and I think we really need to make sure we're really prioritizing cases like issues like this. And having read the just hearing from students, it is an issue in the sports culture, and we really need to make sure we're actually addressing that.
So yeah, Cassie, the only other thing that I'll say is just, if it's something that the board wants to kind of move forward exploring, I'd be happy to put together a proposal with exact costs. I would just need to do a little bit more of that needs assessment so that we could identify which workshops would make the most sense for the needs of Jones. And then the other thing that I'll say is that I have seen schools incorporate other programming, so like their theater programs or their arts programs, any extracurricular programming around the growth mindset and things like that. And so happy to kind of go and dive in on the curriculum piece a little bit more. But as far as pricing goes, I would just need to have a conversation with whoever the decision maker would be on curriculum, and then I could provide that. So
I'd be happy to speak with you on that if you'd like to reach out.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question. Just so I'm clear on what we're doing here, would it be beneficial to properly vet a variety of vendors? I'm just losing the connection here with such a small cadre of staff members, minus any data, connection, results, and things of that nature. So if we're going to try to address a need, I think that we should really look at data, explore all options. No offense to you, Christy, but when you're doing a lot of things, like Dr. Powers is saying, I think that we do need to make sure things are aligned properly, that they will be something that will have the greatest impact, and that we just not, because it's an issue, and it is an issue, just as someone brings something that we say, yeah, we're just going to go with that. And when you start to do a lot of different things with staff and things of that nature, sometimes you can lose some of the ground you're trying to gain. And it's important to focus. So I'm not sure if I missed something, but I'm just trying to see what the connection is. And then if it's just for sports or if it's addressing student needs, I'm missing something here. So I'm not sure if this is for a motion, but I am somewhat unclear about us moving forward with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Christy. Again, if you could just get back in touch with me with some ideas with regard to the type of programming. But again, I, for one, am not willing to move forward with anything other than in exploring this. If we do not have solid data behind it, Cassie made reference to, I believe Cassie said something about the students feel like we really have a problem. That is based on anecdotal feedback. Not necessarily through any surveys that I'm aware of or any that I have seen. And I don't think, Jones, we're looking at a jock mentality school, quite frankly. We are not a school that is noted for its athletics being other than good programs for student growth and development. It's not a win at all costs. If we were win at all costs, we've really missed out on something because our programs are good, solid, competitive, but definitely not of that mentality. And again, I just want to be frank about it. We spent a lot of time talking about something that, frankly, I was never appraised of in advance other than it be appearing on the agenda for this meeting or for the previous meeting. We can talk more about it. I appreciate your feedback, Christy, on this, and certainly can talk some more. But this has got to be based on solid data, solid evaluation of what our needs are. And again, if we continue adding scattershot initiatives to what we're trying to do, we already do have an overarching plan for our equity work, and anything that we add from this point forward needs to be able to be justified as part of that plan. And if it's something that is definitely needed and can be added in, fine. If not, then we make the use of the initiatives that we already have underway, which are well underway, and we have quite a bit of work still ahead of us.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and allowing me to speak.
Thanks. Denai, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I completely agree with Dr. Powers. I don't think that Jones has really a reputation of being like sports isn't really an issue that we have. I think there are a lot of clear issues that we do have, such as with social media, such as with cultural appropriation, things that we see very clear evidence of that we could put more effort towards if we're going to do something outside of what we're already doing. Like Dr. Power has just said, I don't think we've really seen like the fruits of the thing that we're working on yet. So I mean, I would be more on the side of waiting until those things kind of like show themselves a little bit more before we kind of add on new things. Thank you like very much, Christy. I don't mean to disrespect your time. Thank you very much for showing up, but I do agree that this kind of seems like we're trying to like throw everything that we can when it's not necessarily needed. I think kind of like a structured plan that's strategic and based on data and based on things that we have seen, like Dr. Powers said, would be more helpful.
Thanks, Danaya. Any other comments on this? I think we'll wait. Troy, are you raising your hand, or is that just a? Oh, that was Danaya's hand. Okay. So I think Christy will follow up with you for more information as we're starting to plan things for coming, especially for the coming year.
Sure. if you need any of the data, we definitely have all of that, you know, from working with districts across the country. So happy in terms of PCA's data. And then obviously, like I said, yeah, you know, next steps would be a needs assessment. And I recognize we haven't done that with Jones. So yeah. All right. Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for waiting last month. So the next item, I really have just put this on so for people's perusal and as a way to frame our thinking as we go forward about the budget. And I think this really speaks to the last discussion because there is, you know, we've heard lots of different demands. The students last summer had demands. PPLC put together requests about a year ago, and you know, we had the Black Coalition put together additional demands last month, and then we also have the 4 priorities that the administration is working on, looking at all these things together, and really also thinking. I think the most important column in this chart that I shared, and so for people on the YouTube, you can see it's linked from the agenda. Really the most important column I think on this chart is resources needed, and we need to really like actually pin that down as an LSC, because that's really our job to make sure that we are, when we vote on a budget, that budget is funding our priorities, and that is, you know, just one of our key things to do. And then also thinking about our priorities reflected in the CIWP. And so this is not a comprehensive record of what the school needs. This is more a record of what people have been asking for, and also a record of what's been done so far. I haven't updated with the most recent equity report from Mr. Mitchell, so you know, I'll update that and put it in a place where it's accessible to us and the Jones community. And so, you know, definitely happy to take any comments or questions now on it as well. But it's really just like a way for us to track stuff. And that's, you know, really a key part of what we do as an LSC is our role as an oversight body to, you know, make sure that we're representing our constituents and carrying out what people want done, and making sure the school has the resources to do that stuff. So that is really important, both funding, staffing, outside help. Yeah, so that's the summary there. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. We can go on to the next final item. Okay, so let's move on to the amending the bylaws. This has been on the agenda for 2 months too, so hopefully everyone has taken a look at it. I added a tiny little bit to the version that I proposed last month. So this should, it's important to have your participation rules in your bylaws, not just informal and not just informal on the agenda. And so the other thing I added is that we know people can't always make these meetings. They want to give us comments. They want those comments reflected in the record. But I think reading them out loud is going above and beyond what anyone needs. So I think just making that clear in the bylaws is helpful, so people don't think that if they email us something, we'll read it out loud. But you can, if it's appropriate, add it to the minutes. So if people have discussion, anyone, comments, questions, yeah. And Denai, is that your old hand or your new hand?
Old hand, sorry.
No worries. Also note that these bylaws can be amended whenever they are a living document, so it's not the chair's job to bring these things. And so please, everyone, keep that in mind. Okay, I am happy to entertain a motion on this one.
Are there any comments before I throw a motion out there? Okay. I make a motion to amend Article 6, Section 4 of the bylaws as indicated in the draft document. Do I have a second?
A second.
Mr. Hillbrand, second. I'm doing a roll call. Bowman.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yay.
Bugs.
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, Serna Prado. Oh, she's.
Can I have a quick minute?
Yeah, you want a moment?
Yeah.
Sure. We could. Do you want us to wait? I can just.
Or you can't like go to the next person?
I can. Yes. Cresswell.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Hillbrands.
Yay.
Yay. Martinsek.
Yes.
MacArthur.
Yay.
Ranjivar.
Yay.
Powers.
Abstain.
Zen.
Yay.
Serna Prado. Do you want to abstain or you want to?
I'll do yay.
Okay. We have 2 abstains. We had 11 were yays. So it's approved with 11 out of 13.
Okay, the final agenda item, well, almost final. If you have items, remember, you can suggest them to me. That goes for the public as well, as we put together the agenda. And great if we can get it done by Thursday before the coming meeting, because then we can get it posted at school in time, even though technically we can have anything that we are going to vote on just on there before 48 hours. So please keep in mind, email me. I'll try to send out reminders as well. Public participation if needed. I think we are okay. We covered our.
I have one thing from the YouTube chat that was old that I just promised that I would read, and I'm also going to read. I think it's already been answered by someone, but this was regarding Mr. Menjivar's comment about. Sorry, I got to find the exact part of the chat. Sorry, I just lost it. This is a question for Ms. Menjivar. In response to Ms. Cleland that spoke about her family's positive experience at Jones, Mr. Menjivar stated that the majority of students have not had a positive experience. Is there data to support this? We did have a student say that that you didn't say majority. She went back to listen to the recording. You said significant portion of JCP students, especially students of color, have not had positive experiences. And then the student went on to say, to her knowledge, students haven't really gotten a survey to report on negative experiences at Jones, and that there's very few surveys that are answered by more than 50% of the student population. So she would then therefore doubt the credibility of the survey. And she also said many students who've had negative experiences do not report those because they can be re-triggering or re-traumatizing for them. So I think that it was taken care of. I do think that if you wanted to reach out, Mr. Menjivar, separately to Ms. Deely, you guys could have a conversation offline. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I don't think we had anything else in that spreadsheet, so I think we're fine. And seeing no other.
Hey, Latrice has her
My
hand up.
hand is raised.
Great. Go ahead.
I'd like to have, I don't know what item it is in the bylaws, but we need to revisit. We did not reach a consensus about voting on budget items, the amount of $2,500.
Yeah, so do you want to put that on the agenda for next time?
Yes.
Sounds good. I'll work with you to make sure we have the draft and we'll circulate it. Okay, anything else along those lines? Okay, I think seeing we are at the end of our business, we can adjourn. And no further new business. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.